Dzień dobry Państwu, ja się nazywam Robert Stanilewicz i witam na Asseco Banking Forum 2020. To jest kolejne Asseco Banking Forum, ale to jest forum wyjątkowe, zupełnie wyjątkowe. Po raz pierwszy mogą Państwo uczestniczyć w Asseco Banking Forum z dowolnego miejsca na ziemi.
Any cloakroom, from any sweatshirt or any t-shirt, should you be at home, and if you work from home, or if you are in your proper workplace, you can enjoy us with your favorite mug of tea. There's going to be also a break in this event. We can't offer you our coffee on our part. However, all the other things that we can provide you with should be more than remarkable. We are going to talk over issues or questions whether to repair our banking or build it from scratch. A digital bank within 6 days. That's the part of the title of this conference, and you are going to discover how to do it. There's going to be a number of topics that we are going to cope with. We are going to take a look at how the situation looks at the actual intersection of product development, product production, where all the innovation goes in. We've got here Adam's creation, so the famous fresque, and this kind of creation is what we are going to address throughout these hours. So we are going to spare some time for you so that you have time enough to start this forum. Now, over to Adam Góral, President of the Board of Asseco Poland. Good morning. Good morning. This is an extraordinary event, and we can enjoy many benefits. And as we've gone digital, we can be watched by so more people. And this notwithstanding, we are very much hoping for the actual physical event next year. Thanks for this splendid introduction. Indeed, we have got used to these new circumstances. But let me be frank with you, I need to admit I would rather be with you in person. And I would prefer it also in the past, and such times are going to return for sure. Welcome. I'm glad to see you are all very reliable. We can count on you. There have been so many people that have had an interest into taking part in this event. We are happy that we are going to have very significant people in the banking environment as speakers today. I'm grateful for this, and I'm looking forward to a number of fruitful discussions. We live post-March shock. We have started living with the pandemic. The coronavirus is not now something that we treat as a part of our day-to-day life. As I once said, coronavirus must not be a kind of excuse to all of us to explain to people that we can't do something. No, we need to adopt to these tough circumstances, bearing in mind what the prerequisites are, be it health, be it security, but this notwithstanding, we need to be more proactive and ahead thinking. This is what we are learning these days, and this is also something that very much important in the context of your today's presence. We are going to talk over how banking is set to evolve in the future. We've got the representatives of banking IT companies. Times are hard, but we are a bit better off as we are very needed by society. We can take part in this event in this format thanks to innovation, and this is the reason behind our being so fortunate. Normally, I take this opportunity to express my gratitude vis-à-vis the Polish banking sector. I keep my fingers crossed for the flourishing of this sector, as now we've got all it harder than we used to have it a year ago or 2 years ago. But this said, the banking sector and Asseco in particular are trailblazers in the IT and innovation industry, so others copy our solutions. In total, we've got plenty of accomplishments, and recently we have seen something that we can boast about very much indeed. As a leader, my motivation has been to show that Poles can be very, very productive in building up these innovative things. Poles that would start learning 30 years ago did not waste their time and now can be happy about fantastic achievements. Our solutions have been created together with you. Recently, we have set up something splendid, something that we call Asseco Banking Solutions, together with our German partner. Now we have discovered that the product that we've developed can be also a kind of a future for the German market. The very entrance to the German market, by the way, is bound to be very strenuous, something comparable to the times in which we created our startup, Asseco. Nevertheless, I believe in this project. I deeply believe in it, but we've learned banking from international sources at international banking institutions, and now it is for us valid to say that we as pupils, as students, have created something that comes with much of owe to our international teachers. Welcome to our international meeting, Digital Banking Within 6 Days, a very promising title, though I deeply believe we will give an answer to this question towards the end of this event. Thank you. That was Adam Góra, the president of the board of Asseco Poland. Thank you very much indeed for this introduction. Now, just returning to this famous fresk that you see behind me, I would like to say that it actually contained a suggestion that this very creation would come by itself. All right, briefly about our agenda. There's going to be one novelty absent from our previous editions, so we might be a bit surprised to see it. You can ask us questions via the internet, and some of the questions, at least, are going to be answered towards the conclusion of the event. In a second, we will start reflecting upon this digital dilemma: to build up from scratch or to repair what we already have. We've got this revolutionary banking sector, which does a lot to go through this banking adventure. There are new players also to this industry, somebody who have originated from other sectors. At times they present themselves as banks, at other occasions they develop their proper businesses, which by and large can be described as fintechs. Fintech being in itself something very complex, but we need some solid, some robust background. We need some bird's-eye perspective over the world in 2020. Let us get reminded of the actual beginnings. Theories might derive from many things, but let me give you one. 2007, Steve Jobs presented first iPhone. Then Lehman Brothers collapsed in 2008. Technology, and following this, there came the destruction of some part of the banking sector. This was the time in which many people lost their jobs. They were striving for their niche, and so came into being this fintech generation. People who stood behind it, starting created new things. All was coupled with novel processes. All right, so first the background, and then we are going to have an actual debate over what are the forces, what are the balances at this actual weight. What's actually winning? Developing a bank or repairing a bank? Over to Grzegorz Paskucki now, Asseco Business Consulting Lead. Since the major topic of today's conference is digital banking, let me begin with providing you with a definition. This came into being at the intersection of two worlds. That is how we look at the banking industry as such, and what we have heard when talking to the representatives of the sector. Some of the materials came into being based on talks we held with practitioners, i.e. people behind the actual digital transformation. What is a digital bank? A digital bank is a bank which is open up to the external world. The bank which is capable of integrating within its actual business model a host of products delivered by other agents, by other companies, by other enterprises. This is all set to optimize and streamline the processes of the bank vis-à-vis its customers. A digital bank is boiled down to function in this digital environment. Like, look at what came for Google or Apple. We don't see this physical element. We, as banking, have to be agents working at the background. We need to cater for needs that come from our clients. For a bank to become digital, it has to go through this digital transformation, the process of digitization. So within the context of my presentation, I would like to reflect upon two alternative roads, two alternative paths that companies once pursued, especially those companies that are now present at the financial market. So let us be retrospective in looking what was once an attitude in the past represented by banks, an evolution of digital banking. Secondly, I would like to look into how other entities regarded the digital transformation, those agents which now co-develop a certain ecosystem in which banking services are provided, because banks are no longer monopolies in terms of the actual delivery of banking services. Just what we are planning to have in this presentation. The ecosystem is split into some categories. First of all, traditional banks. Those traditional banks, as said, have pursued this path in the evolutionary manner. Second, next to it, we've got a group of other agents which affronted this transformation differently. They came later to this landscape. It might have been therefore easier for them, as they were not burdened with this very legacy. So fintechs which are now defined as mono-product companies, agents that would focus on one very selected plot of the entire industry, and this is the kind of model and that they have contributed to the needs of their clients. Then we are going to focus on entities which were born as fintechs, something that comes as a reflection to a different business model that would allow for a number of business products, but this is all founded in technology. Last but not least, we are going to offer some insights into another group of players, which came into being very recently, big techs, e-commerce companies or retailers. These are all enterprises that have come to the following conclusion. Why don't we find some aspects of this business model that would be reserved once for this financial sector? Let us have it as a link, as a puzzle in our value chain. Let us begin with the traditional banking. As mentioned beforehand, traditional banks have gone through a path that led them in between further milestones regarding digital transformation. The first stage was, or might be called, a digital beginner. Digital beginners are all those who actually have not been present recently in our banking sector, but look eastwards, there are such beginners. These are traditional banks. These are banks that are present in this traditional channel. Their back office processes are decentralized and traditionally based on this human factor work. A genuine breakthrough coincided with the appearance of the internet bank. It is the moment in time in which banks started shifting to other fields, to become explorers. Explorers were banks that would design their banking repertoire in a different way. That would be stage number 2. Stage number 3, digital transformers. Digital transformers are banks who are fully fledged representatives of digital transformation. They can cater to their clients in digital channels altogether. As for their front desk service, it has all gone digital, and this is a distinguishing feature of the explorers among other banks. All the processes, including back office, can be provided at the front, i.e. digitally. The very last stage of development is denoted by digital leaders. Digital leaders are characterized by lifelong learning. Some banks have arrived at this stage, others have not, but this is the very final stage. Let us return to the definition for an instance, a bank which is closed as an ecosystem but open up to the needs of the clients. This is a bank that can provide its products to the clients, but digital leader looks as it does now, but in 5 years, 10 years, it might look totally differently. You will for sure hear more about it during our second discussion panel. As I have mentioned, when I was preparing for this presentation, I came into contact with the market. I got their feedback. And now, as it turns out, we are in Poland in between an explorer and a transformer. Some banks see themselves as digital leaders, but most of the banks say and admit that this is the right place that they can be now. Which was the most difficult stage? Apparently, the penultimate one. This is a place which is most peppered with challenges and difficulties, as it employs how the strategy is designed. There are many milestones which are determining whether or not a given bank will be recruited to the group of digital leaders or not, and will eventually stay at the stage of digital transformers. This pursuit looked differently for other players of the financial sector. Let us get back to 2008. This is when the financial turmoil started. This was an actual breakthrough, which saw newer and newer organizations pop up. Fintechs waited and saw what would go on, and so they came up with something brilliant. Let us find ourselves a niche within the existing financial sector. Let us pick up one product or some products. Let us package it within technology, and this is going to be served to our clients. It was followed by e-banking, as I said. Then it was followed by the actual expansion of new banks. We see more and more business models which enter into financial sectors. Still, they are offered by suppliers that would traditionally not be linked to this financial sector. Interestingly enough, this stage of development of said institutions lasted just a few years. Some have been capable of going through this whole pursuit within months or within years. And now it leads us to the following conclusion. How does this system look? The actual pioneers were the banks. They have developed products that have been with us for many, many years, for a dozen of years. Later came technology giants. They they were set up on a different soil. They had an idea which only later was redeveloped into business model, but they were actually a trendsetters. Let us take all which is in the physical world and transfer it to the digital zone. So banks were inspired by technological giants. Together with fintechs started this transformation. Fintechs started taking advantage of this world of technology to the benefit of their business models. Next, there are banks, there are other actors, there are other stakeholders who have enrich their business models with services that would traditionally be reserved for traditional banks.
And in order to become one of the players in this marketplace, you have to adopt one of the roles. What's important, what we think about is which role gives what kind of advantages and provides challenges, let's say. We have been comparing the players in different fields, and we think that traditional banks are still privileged, in a privileged position. But in detail, how we should approach digital transformation, whether it's better to build or transform a digital bank, and which of the roles fits more to which model of digital transformation. We'll learn about it during the coming discussion panel. I do hope that this introduction has been sufficiently interesting and has provided food for thought. Yes, great it was. Well, I have a question. Digital banking in 6 days. Why 6 days? Why not during a shorter time? Well, I think that even though I've said goodbye to gambling, but I think before the end of the conference, there will be someone who will say that you can build a digital bank in 6 minutes. Well, it's very ambitious. So let's wait for such a discovery. As Grzegorz has suggested, that something like that can pop up during the next items of our agenda on the Asseco Banking Forum. Well, now we'll talk about these roles with people who play those roles. Some of them have gone through transformation, have transformed the banking model towards the new one. It's a hard job done, but they've succeeded as well. On the other hand, these are people who have undertaken different role. Some stem from the banking world, but they propose something different, say something different. They say, well, we'll make a bank you can set up anywhere in the globe at a click. If you want a bank, you don't need to have a huge giant. You can build something very quickly. Maybe the giant should build a bank on the side instead of transforming itself. We'll see. We'll see some of the questions. Some will be asked, and we'll try to provide some answers to them. In a while, we'll have the CEOs in the panel. Hello, welcome again at the Asseco Banking Forum. This is the CEOs panel. We'll discuss the issue whether to build or repair, how traditional banks cope with transformation, what the new players can offer to them. So let me introduce the participants. Łukasz Dziekan, member of the board of Allegro Pay. Morning, a new service, so killer to the credit cards, very fashionable globally. In internet, Mr. Forsberg, member of Vodeno, he's remotely, well, that's our necessity from Łódź, yes, in quarantine. Mirosław Forsberg, Vodeno. But I hope you're right. Everything's okay. Yes, thank you very much. And now, please be proactive in the discussion, even though remotely. Piotr Gawron, president of the board of Dragon Services. So Vodeno and Dragon Services, as Mr. Forstek is remotely with us, so I'm in the fintech part, geographically on this stage. But to strike the balance, I have to add something before I introduce the people representing the banking sector. When you say where you work, Allegro Pay, it's easy. Where you work for Allegro? Oh, great. But if Vodeno or Dragon, people from the banking sector have it simpler. When asked by a neighbor or somewhere else, well, I'm on the board of PKO SA, right? PKO BP. I'm on the board of Idea Bank. Oh, yeah. But here, I'm president of Vodeno or Dragon. What it's all about? So there is a challenge in your professional life. So could you tell us quickly what you do, what you provide? Well, my colleague or me, Mirosław Forystek. Well, you make banks, right?
Dla przedsiębiorstw bankowych i nie tylko, która pozwala na dodawanie usług typowych dla sektora finansowego do portfolio różnego rodzaju przedsiębiorstw. I ta platforma tak naprawdę to jest pełny taki system bankowy, który jest całkowicie od zera zbudowany w środowisku chmurowym i który może być wykorzystywany przez różne podmioty w sposób polegający albo na konsumpcji API, które my dostarczamy, albo z wykorzystaniem także naszych rozwiązań frontendowych. Czyli jeżeli ktoś chce...
So if someone wants to establish a new bank or to add some service to a bank, to a portfolio, while using our platform, you can do it. Well, great. Now, Piotr Gawron, over to you. So, providers of banking technologies, outsourcers. Yes, we are an outsourcer, very similar of banking technology, but in addition, we take over the functions that you have in order to be supported by some back office, not manually, but whatever. We can provide contact center. We also provide service in lieu of banks or other institutions who use investment products. We service the products, we maintain them. And so behind each of this institution, there are very well-known managers from the Polish banking sectors. We can talk about that. Yes, some Stefan and Wojciech Sobieraj, who developed their own banks. So we are still at the introduction stage. So on my left, Jaromir Frankowicz, member of the board of Idea Bank. Good morning. Good morning. Then Marek Lenz, CIO of PKO SA, so head of the IT in a big bank. Adam Marciniak, deputy president of the board of PKO BP. I let the gentleman say something. Well, in your case, it's simple. I work for a big bank. This is why I haven't given you the floor for a while. Now let's move to the questions. By the end of conference, there will be a very well-known banking manager, Piotr Czarnecki, and he will ask a rhetorical question. Why banks? Why do we need banks? So I hope it will be a very inspiring presentation. So I would like to ask a question to all of you gentlemen, one by one. Shall we need banks during the next few 10 or 15 years? Maybe the transformation will go so far that we'll forget about something like a traditional bank. Shall we need bank? Piotr Gawron, over to you. Well, I'm a representative of this non-banking sector, so my answer is clearly that the banks as institutions will stay with us, but whether customers will need them, no, customers, they will need the services offered by banks or maybe not banks. You can see it clearly today, as we already referred to that in many places we use, we pay with the phone, and via Apple or Google, but not necessarily bank. The fact that you have a banking product or service in the background doesn't mean that the bank is a partner to the customer. So I think on the long run, the services will stay with us. Now it's a very trendy buzzword. Usually there are many authors that banking services, yes, banks, no. I don't think banks as institutions will. Yeah, that was said back in the 1990s. said that banking sectors will continue to be very important, but banking institutions no more. I can agree to the extent that it's the fact that there will be institutions as providers, but not as partners directly to the customers. The customers don't look for banks. Shall we need a bank, say, in a dozen years from now? I think that if you talk about such a perspective, very clearly the banks will stay with us. What will change will be the nature of the services. Many banking services that are provided solely by banks today will be available. But Mr. President, I would like to hear yes or no. Shall we need them? And then your arguments, or no? Yes, clearly, we shall need them. Łukasz Dziekan. Yes, I think as well that we will need banks and more startups, like banks of stem cells or whatever, they call themselves banks. So I think banks will be necessary, financial banks as well. I think the very term will become broader. The financial banks will exist because it's an institution that has gone through a couple of hundred years. So why should they disappear within a dozen years? So your answers will be clear, I think. Shall we need banks in, say, maybe 20 years? I think that we will need them, but on the long run, it's from the banking system, the reason, and the security of the financial exchange or trade. So it will be. But as to the services, I agree with the previous speaker, Mark Lenz. Clearly, the banks will stay with us because it's the banks who have introduced mobile payments, not fintechs, and they started it in Poland, not fintechs. And let's bear in mind that the banking sector is not only that to the retail customer, it's not only mobile application and plastic card, it also serves corporations, companies. Yeah, but we can do it via services. Well, wish you success. These are very complex products and platforms, sophisticated and dedicated to big customers, individual customers. I haven't heard about any startup that could offer them. And I want to be vicious, but well, maybe there will be some more discussion or more some viciousness. Well, who would buy the fintechs without banks, if not the banks? There is a fund, a couple of funds globally that since recently they would buy anything for. Mr. Marciniak, shall we need banks within 15, 20 years? We know that the world is changing rapidly. Well, let me start slightly differently. If we talk about traditional banks, as they operate right now, they won't be needed. First of all, they will not exist, and no one will remember them even. But if we talk about a situation that we think about banking services, so that we build certain value in the relationship with the customer, the banks will exist to the extent when they maintain this relation via portfolio of services that are needed to satisfy the needs. Of course, plus some other products that will support it, but these products will be transparent. No one will think about what's happening with the payment process, how it looks like. We can already see that we have one-click processes, and the process is completely transparent. And Mirek will say more, I think, about it. We switched to the subscription banking, so from the e-commerce and media world, Netflix has built made a fortune. And I support Mirek and his team that they succeed, because by this we change the way of thinking, of perception. So banks as such, well, these are, we're talking about products. They offer certain products. Will the customer need a product? No, the customer doesn't need. They need to satisfy their needs. And the product is only a vehicle, a means. Oh my God, what are the... Well, you might think the opinions would be different. Mr. Marciniak has addressed Mr. Forstek and referred. Let's move. Mr. Forstek. Well, before, one digression. Mr. Forstek will leave us at about 11 for important reasons. So maybe more often we'll ask him right now because it will be mid-discussion. Before we reach the subscription banking or banking on demand, I will get back to what Mr. Lenz has said. He said that these are complex processes, cannot be provided just like that. Do you agree that you cannot provide them otherwise than by bank? When we discuss about the banks, whether they will exist or not, what the word bank means, what a banking and for whom? We as a big institution are bank for various customer sectors. And I think the discussion is driving towards retail customer only. So that's why I stress upon the fact that bank provides many products people have no clue about. Yeah, and I'm not talking about it's for business, providing funding for economy, investment. Can it be done by fintech, not strictly a bank? So a fintech that can build platforms as a service. So there are two aspects to that, I think. One pertains to technology and the facts. And second aspect is of regulatory nature. Some banking products can be provided only by institutions that have relevant licenses. And due to safety and security of the system, there will be no dramatic changes during the next 20 or 30 years even. But from the technology perspective, there is no problem. New technologies available allow us to implement all this much quicker than in the classic banking environment. Well, talking about these sophisticated processes and products to finance corporations or business operations, is it feasible, or do you always need a relationship or a meeting during even the COVID time and a direct operation that rules out 100% use of technology? Well, I think that an important thing is that the bank has a very wide spectrum of products. If we talk about corporate products, I think adoption of these new solutions will take much longer. But what can be seen is an ongoing wave of automation of different solutions pertaining to retail customers originally, but now to SMEs. And I think eventually it will also provide corporate solutions. In the corporate world, use of smart contracts or blockchain allow us to change the rules of the game, even at the top levels of the market.
Piotr Gawron, what say you about going deeper with these processes as regards the fintechs? Normally, it would be something of a spectacular nature for the clients. Can such platforms as yours can develop this from beginning to the end? Now, talking about clients or group of clients, we have to say one thing. We debate of the things. We can show examples of fintechs, be it Revolut or TransferWise or the other ones. But fintechs, as of today, do not only denote individual clients. There are also fintechs servicing corporations, and that is, they all service very sophisticated processes. Lately, I have had a talk with a fintech founder standing behind, taking over treasury operations as a fintech, not as a bank, in terms of regulations. And this is indeed something of a security measure for the clients, but on the other hand, this is very much inhibiting the development of the industry. So whatever goes on in the bank may be also the result of binding regulations. Now, in terms of the progress, I speak with the clients on numerous occasions. We were talking about card solutions. And it turned out, despite we know that, and I'm not referring to any banks represented here, some banks, some solutions are not available at the corporate side. So corporate side is not very sophisticated, therefore fintechs occupy this field, but this is not something very much accentuated in the media, which does not mean such situations do not come into play. So there are such examples. My target client is not an individual client. My target client is a corporation, irrespective of the fact what kind of a client it is. It might be also a bank. We service companies, not individuals. So this kind of activity is perhaps less popular, less disseminated, but it is out there. Let me tell you one thing. In terms of relationships, packages of services, let us avoid a situation in which, you've got the entire portfolio. That is, you've got a package of services. If you want a mortgage, then you need to also to have your account at our bank. If a client should be very much and are distressed by such situations, this is indeed a challenge. Right, President. What are you suggesting? What are you evoking? Is this something counter to ethical? If you allure a client with one product, it does not mean that you've got a monopoly with them. Today's world, given the saturation of data, information, client experiences, UX, knowledge, given that we as individual clients pick up products given their characteristics, not given their brands, the brands that they represent. If I have an international transfer to do, I use TransferWise. On other occasions, I take a loan. If I need something different, I may go to fintechs. Fintech loan institutions. None of these companies enjoy a monopoly for all these services. Monopolies are no longer valid, are no longer relevant. Such companies are besides very much specialized in their respective fields, in the fields where they enjoy good reputation. If they force things to clients, it is doomed to be a failure. We see that this topic is in itself very robust. So, traditional banks. In your field, this very digital transformation and future progress, what's your take on it? What do you say? We've got this traditional banking flank and a fintech flank. So, a question to you: transformation. What kind of investment is it? How do you approach it these days? How do you approach it in your bank? How is it approached in the entire industry? Let me begin with referring to what has been said already. I would be confrontational a bit. There are clients that need an account, that need a card, that need this complex and comprehensive environment that only a big institution can guarantee. I've been looking at fintechs throughout my entire career. I'm not that old after all. Why do we call them mono products? They pick up whatever is easy to be taken over, and they bypass all the things that are deemed difficult. That is this very regulation part. That is a necessity. That is something of irrevocable nature. In some countries, regulations matter more. In some countries, regulations matter less, are less of a challenge. But all the things have to be controlled. Fintech, by themselves, take over products that can be integrated easily, or introduce elements which go in this linear direction. Now, referring to your question, let me frame it in this following manner. We are a bank for a medium and for small and medium-sized enterprises. This is the sector that's going to thrive. This sector does not promise a digitized path, a fully digitized path, and we take advantage of the niche that we see in the Polish market. What we want to do, we want people with a company, with an enterprise, to have all the formalities done via the internet channel. And the pandemic has not changed many things. It has just assured us of the direction that we've been pursuing. We've been doing it continuously for the last 3 years. What we have also taken into consideration was to withdraw from physical branches. We might approach it once, but the goal is clear. We want to build up an environment inviting for SMEs. We want to service them from home. We want them to be getting a product that they are interested in without the necessity to, going to a physical branch. I need to talk this over as well. Hopefully you do remember this question. I'll manage. No worries about it. Above all, I'm also a client of a fintech. Fintechs do perfect on condition that everything goes smoothly. If it does not, if it stops, money have gone somewhere, you have to get something back, then this contact value, this contact quality deteriorates. You have to be serviced by artificial intelligence, and then this artificial intelligence is far from being altogether intelligent, and you may send over an email to which a reply comes after the passage of several weeks. We service fintechs, and we've been doing it for some time now, and we are prepared not to give one product away. We give away a package of services. We attempt to do it in this comprehensive way, and there's also a phone number that you can call. There is a person dedicated that you can contact, not artificial intelligence that you can shout at via phone. As coming back to this goal, as regards transformation, we are a bank who have been changing very much indeed for the last 3 years. We have redeveloped our channels from the retail banking front, and 24 is new, and there are many new things that will follow. We'll also organize our structure from this corporate part to address our corporate clients, whom we see as the actual future of the development of this industry in Poland. And now, speaking of the impact of coronavirus, it has just speeded up our activities. Decisions that would normally take a year to be taken is now taken within a working day. Is this bank going to be branchless? No. But the digital transformation, this is something to which you say a total yes. There will be branches, but we want these branches to be appealing to people. Because now, very often, so you are restricted to come in. This is the kind of situation that we don't want. We want people to be out there if they actually want it. IT department, 1,200 people. That's the employment of it. The president of PKO BP would once say that this is a company. I can't remember the quote exactly. I don't want to misquote it. This is an IT company with a banking license. It was supposed to be very ambitious as in terms of goal declaration. What is this transformation going to lead you? Let me quote my first speaker, you digitize or you die. Having a look at how our reality is reshaping itself, how the lives of our clients are being reshaped. Our necessity is to follow these trends. And banking has traditionally been perceived as least innovative. The proof being is this sports product of yours. So we've got the competences of Polish IT guys all the things subscribing to one goal. All right, coming back. We have always been in the actual avant-garde of this digital transformation, globally speaking, but when it comes to this very recent developments, it has speeded up. It has speeded up, it has been guided by fluctuant technologies, cloud technologies, IT, all spearheaded by big techs. They have started taking advantage of these solutions, and it has all resulted in banks losing their momentum. And now it's of key importance. Our clients, our shareholders won't be settling us upon this year or this quarter. We will be then judged upon the period of time of 3 years to come. We as companies are trying to shoulder up our way to maintain a relationship with clients, and in order to be able to maintain this relationship from the point of view of digital transformation, one has to excel, and that's precisely the objective that we are pursuing. Okay, let us stop us here. Mirosław Forystek has to leave us shortly. I know that we are nearing your time in which you have to go. Okay, those people who do their job in banks, should they rather, instead of transforming, build up new banks from scratch? Go to some companies. We're at a Asseco Banking Forum. Just a reminder, give us what you've got. We don't want these 1,200 IT developers. Let us have a new bank from scratch. Is it real? Is it tangible? Is it feasible? It is, in my opinion. To approach a transformation of this very complex and comprehensive environment is very much of a challenge, given external processes and internal ones. There are many puzzles in this complex picture, but it is very noteworthy and worthwhile taking into consideration to compromise or to challenge your standing in the market by opening up something new, because opportunities which pop up, which are acknowledged by our host, by my company, they help us spearhead these initiatives within a very limited period of time. This gives you one advantage: no risk, no projectable risk that would normally appear in this banking sector, given long decision-making. When you have ready-made platforms, then financial commitment is far less expanded. Therefore, the associated risk is much lower compared to traditional approaches. So let me give you some encouragement. My personal account is as follows. To repair, to restore your house is a lengthy, strenuous process, not always crowned with success. Sometimes it's easier to buy a new property or to rent an apartment. But I take arguments of people who are more into repairing their current properties. Mirosław Forystek, member of the board of Woden. Thank you for your participation. All the best. Be good. Stay healthy. Be successful in business. Now coming back to either should we repair, should we build anew? Łukasz Dziekan, you might be a bit taken aback. What say you? Are you going to be a bank one day at Allegro Pay? What do you think about transforming such giant banks? By no means is this question easy to answer. A transformation always employs a more comprehensive organism, It depends on people. It depends on goals. It depends on timeline. It depends on the character of the venture that we are faced up with. We need to ensure continuity of actions. There must be no negative implications for clients. So, would you like to take up this challenge, or at any of the given banks? It very much depends. It depends on whether or not you've got support within this broader organizational culture. Are you mandated with leading or spearheading such campaigns? I look at you, guys. How many decisions are you permitted to take? Transactions look differently from one bank to another. I need to trouble you with these questions a bit. Sorry. When you think about this process, do you get a headache? And you want to do your things, or just a job? Just a job. This is a super challenge, that's for sure, just to transform one company into something totally different. But this is for sure something difficult. This is a challenge. It demands thorough planning. Is it harder to do things you do? It's very different to what we do. Right, coming back to this question of transformation, there is this question mark that very much digs into the core of transformation. How to combat this lack of willingness to have long-term actions, whereby makeshift solutions are easier and more welcoming. What do you think about this? About this unwillingness to act in this long-term scenario? This short-term is by far something more appealing. President?
Mr. Frankowicz, yes, let me give an example taken from real life. We've been getting ready for digitization for 3 years, and consolidation on legacy systems were most important. We've had several CRMs and internet banks all in the background, and we prepared us so that it's a moment when we can do new mobile platform, or we can automate processes and so on and so forth. But IT in the financial world has it difficult to convince the CEOs that this is the right direction. Was the most difficult thing. But here, the example is in last January, we met with the rest of the board and we discussed the new space, because the company moved to a new location, to new HQ, new buildings, and to prepare the buildings and so on and so forth. Then I said, let's reduce the space. We are ready to work remotely. Not all of us, not at the time, but we can provide it. And in January, I was, they said, go away. But in March, they apologized. I'm talking about this, last January. And that's when you suggested, yes, of course, digitization program was already under development, but we have a very specific case that the IT department said, well, we don't need such big room. We can work remotely. We can also reduce the costs. Well, it sounds as if you said, well, it's a pandemic is the trigger to convince people. Yeah, why? Let us hope that it will be over. That we won't need another pandemic to do such moves. But it was a breakthrough. Let's say it was March when everything started, and when they apologized 10 times at least. And it took us only 2 days to rearrange all that. We're talking about over 80% of the staff who moved to work remotely because we were ready. And thanks to that, a month later, digitization program was formally approved with the budget and so on. It had been developed, but I didn't believe that we could formalize it so quickly. And it's part of the strategy of how to overcome the reluctance to long-term activities when, well, in our bank, I think we are in a specific situation, a slightly different example, because made ownership transformation took place. So it's clear that the former owner did not propel so much the development of technologies. So together with the new owner, it was obvious that we have to modernize from the technology perspective. But the problem was what kind of priorities would. Well, we decided where the technology gives the biggest advantage. So first of all, in the case of retail clients, of course, we are redeveloping the entire bank, but there was no question how to get to work. There was a change and certain things became obvious, but you have broad professional experience. It's not your first institution. What do you think about this breaking through this reluctance? Is it possible, or we need some tectonic things like pandemic or change of the owner? Yeah, it's a good question. When I just have scanned my history, I have a feeling that I've always worked for dynamic companies, stemming from the DNA. So they operated simply dynamically. As Mr. Frankowicz has said, that there must be this tectonic shifts or earthquakes. Well, right before the pandemic, we had a huge project to replace laptop computers. We had only 15%, all the rest were desktop computers. So we ordered them. They were supposed to arrive on 20th of March. The pandemic started at 12th of March. So the laptop computers did not arrive because, well, they were not manufactured in China by the time. So having only 15% computers being cleared, we had to switch 15,000 people to work remotely. So all of a sudden you could buy laptops. You know, it's a huge truck or lorry. In 2 hours we bought them. So pandemic was helpful, but the shift that we made also changed this and the mentality is that we keep on changing technologically. Well, I don't think that in your institution you have a problem with this reluctance to long term. Well, often we face such reluctance in institutions. What about your reflections? Long-term change versus short-term thinking. I think a mature institution does not think on a short run. As we are in the lead among banks, these are serious people with the long-term thinking and being aware of the fact that today's decision will bear fruit in the long run. And so this level of this awareness is high. And the sector has been always mature from the digital perspective, and it's been continued. As PKO, we've been aware, but we've started acting more vividly to improve the technology for financial sector or the customers who work. So our programs, our software and programs that improve the customer service quality, like 500 plus, 300 plus, e-identity profile, and the financial field done using our technology. So we've always been thinking from a long-term perspective and digitization. Of course, there's been a resistance, but you're like a sect, like a cult in IT. If someone tries to double-check, they become an IT specialist. Didn't you have any resistors like that? Yeah. I'll call. It's a natural risk. Like, for example, accountants, they usually look for economies or optimization. But what is of key importance is to build trust. within organization through successes, through accomplishments, and we've managed. So there was no discussion. Long-term decisions such as, well, let us make a national cloud. We negotiate 2 biggest technological contracts in Poland over the last several decades. And the result was like 3 billion investment into Polish economy. These decisions we took being aware and bold at the same time. So these are decisions that created long-term change. Now, for example, the beginning of this year, right before the pandemic, we built a Road to Cloud program. So I want to demonstrate how you can organize a financial institution in a modern manner using state-of-the-art technologies, but also in a responsive manner. So you base on Polish products, Polish solutions, among them by Asseco. So we use several products while migrating to the cloud. And it demonstrates that under the program, the first 2-3 years will cost more from the perspective of the operation of the institution. But the economies will be visible in year 3, 4, 5. So it's like in hockey. Will accelerate. So we want to use the state-of-the-art technology. What's good from the perspective of the last few weeks? We've had no problems with shifting 13,000 people to work from home, because earlier we had already launched a program where 11,000 were moved to virtual workstations. So the technologies that we used in the network of our branches, this also, but you don't know a recipe how to break through resistance in organization. It's either someone understands the change and begins to contribute, or they have to go. Well, it may be even the CEO or the board, right? So you have to leave the such an organization. And the question is, do we want to be in an organization when such a CEO stays? A resistant one. Now the question is, are fintechs a response to this clumsiness or heavyweight of banks? Łukasz, Allegro Pay, have you made your fintech because the bank didn't manage, or what you do? We can do with credit card, right? What you do? No, we start with the customer. We know the needs. We didn't think about banks or other fintechs. We just want to better support our clients. And that's the only reason why we make these products like Allegro Pay. There are no other reasons. The point is that it's more useful to the customers, more comfortable, so that they can satisfy their needs in e-commerce even better. So there was no question that, oh, the banks don't. No, because why should we have such a consensus as banks undertake certain steps? But what you do is like Klarna. It's a similar model. If I'm right, it's a threat to the card issuers. No, but if I buy, you can say a file is a threat to the card business. Mastercard has entered it, but you can postpone in your case the payment. Unlike, but customers want to postpone. Sometimes they want to pay immediately, depending on their needs. Let me repeat: all that banks do, the fintechs, depends on the customers. So. I wonder whether generally fintechs were not created because someone in the bank found certain deficiencies in banks. I think most of the fintechs or retailers were created to satisfy the customer needs. And the dependence on fintechs is, well, that they are to optimize costs. Then the banks will buy in order to optimize the costs. There are two things, either top line or bottom line. So with better results, everyone has a bonus, everyone is happy. So I think in this case, so fintechs are not a response to this clumsiness, whether it exists or not. No, the banks also establish fintechs. I think soon we'll reach a situation that there will be fintechs created not only by banks, but investment funds, Fintech is only a buzzword. There's a financial technology, right? We're doing it with a purpose, either to lower the cost or to satisfy the customer better. It's great to be in technology. And if you once you convince CEOs that it's technology is business, then they won't think, oh, IT is a cost and business is profit. Technology means profit, is a profit driver, if you agree or not. Yes, so I have no doubt everything will be fine. And those who won't understand it may have problems. So that's in relation to how to convince them to long-term changes. So the point is why Google or Microsoft, Amazon have so many programmers, because they know that elementary thing is change. What they build today will have to be rewritten in 3 years' time. And already in 12, Google Cloud wasn't there, and Amazon allowed to create virtual machines in the cloud. And today they have 300 services, and the programmers don't know what to start. In 2 years' time, there will be different apps. So we need teams that can think quickly and develop it, but develop it in a responsible way, not like on a prototype basis only. And it's quite difficult. Well, teams, Piotr Gavron, a question. Are fintech's response to the clumsiness of banks? Oh, well, and can this team, in order to answer the question, it's linked to the previous one. I think that the long-term thinking, we focus due to our host, Asseco, we focused on technologies, but the problem is not whether banks have caught up technology-wise others, but the problem is in the environment. It's very difficult to persuade big teams that do something different to change the way of thinking. The accounting department, for example, others, they always convince you and defend their positions, that the branches are very much needed, because that's the tradition they stem from. I also appreciate what PKO BP has been doing, and the project you've mentioned are more of a social nature to support the development, digital development in Poland. And it's also very important. And we need financial institutions to this end, like PKO, SA, or BP, being capable of doing it. But transformation of the bank itself is difficult due to the environment, because the set number of people who have to qualify or to change the approach. Fintechs are, in a way, an answer to this transformation, or they allow, among other things, also the banking, like ING. They allow to do a project outside of the bank in order not to have these problems such as the board, the administration, accounting, audit departments, but do it in compliance with the law. Fintechs do not bypass the law. They do it differently. Their approach is different because they have this external perspective. And a fintech is an answer to the needs of the customer in order to organize a process or a service in another way, which in a traditional bank could not be achieved because they go along the beaten track. Not bad for the banking sector, but let's take Revolut. It has changed the approach to use different currencies and exchange currencies, because it looked from the customer's perspective. I think in a bank it would have been very difficult. Well. Some other banks have responded through some introduced multi-currency cards, so it could be done at the but that's a copy of that idea. So the point is this clumsiness. No, that idea would not have been conceived in the bank. And that's due to a different perspective. It's not that the bank cannot do it. Multi currency cards were before Revolut. Revolut sold it well. With the similar spreads, like by, yeah, well, almost make a difference. Yeah, the spreads, that was the point behind the Revolut. Yeah, but better than, I haven't said that the bank cannot achieve a solution technologically like fintechs, but where the idea was born, where it was coined, and why. Fintechs addressed selected sometimes niche needs of the clients, and they are created in order to satisfy those needs. But there's another question. I wonder whether the majority of fintechs can support themselves, be self-support. Why not? When banks are generated by money is generated by, or currency by central banks, the funds finance when investors, but why investors invest? What do they want to achieve? Do they want the fintechs to grow? Well, why investors provide the funding? It's with one of the things is the funding. Billions of dollars flow in order to build certain scale. We don't know for how long. I think it's a question that does not pertain to the Polish market. Most of the money invested is invested in the US, UK, partly Germany. They have different market structure, different banking sectors where investors, I think, as they know, there is a chance to change the sector, maybe even consolidate. In Germany, you have a couple of hundred Landesbanks. In the States, 4,000 savings and loans institutions. I think investors want to change the structure of the market, but it doesn't involve Polish funds. So billions go to Revoluts and other Monzos, and Vodeno, yes, because the markets are different. Markets vary. Please note that core system providers are different in the States or as compared to Poland.
Those systems that were developed in the States would once be fintechs too. Remember 2000 when the internet bubble burst? Why did it happen so? Everyone believed it would be more than enough to have some kind of portal, recruit clients, etc. Right. Does it mean that post-2000 internet products altogether collapsed? No. What stayed were the products, were the companies that that knew how to maneuver in this new situation. It was a very robust impulse for the entire industry, and we can see implications even today by you look at Google, look at Amazon, look at other players. I'm not saying that there's going to be a fintech bubble doomed to burst. And I'm glad, for sure, there are fintechs which are more than likely to collapse. It's natural, but fintech is not only the only core of this discussion. We can talk hours about topics pertaining to this very area where we are at. That is regulations. That is licenses. Why do fintechs need licenses? I would very much want to inquire into whether or not Allegro would once issue a motion for a license, Teams, etc., etc. So there is a full repertoire of topics that I would like to address. But let us now restrictively to concentrate on whether or not we should repair or build a new. President Forystek wanted us to build something new next to what we already have. Advantages and drawbacks, in your opinion, gentlemen, what are said advantages and drawbacks to build something new instead of, restoring what you already have developed? Let me reiterate the problem lies not within the technology or the lack of capacities within the banks. No, the issue is that now a bank is a certain structure, a certain network of people, something that is very hard to compromise these days. If there is a new project newly coming into being, it is an entity that you more easily can manage. I can't imagine a situation when now you've got a PKOBP-like bank that would go 100% digital. These banks are very much enshrined in the traditional channels, in the traditional networks of branches. And I see your arguments. I can notice your arguments about different sorts of clients that you would like to address. But, you know, having ones at hand does not automatically mean you can't do other activities in another field. I don't believe it doesn't really matter whether we build or we repair. We've got the same goal. In goal, we are united. We want to have a certain degree of digitalization, digital structures that would very much cater for the needs of our clients. The thing that we do it is makes evident that we know what our clients wish to obtain. Every bank is different. Every fintech is different in the first place. So we've got a very well extended banking background. We are not a technology company in the first place. We need to acquire trust. Once we've been successful in this, then we can take further steps in goal. As said, we are united. Mr. Forystek said it is sometimes worthwhile challenging your very own market position so that you can create something new, some new being, some new entity to start off something new. What are advantages, what are drawbacks of this kind of scenario? I would be a proponent of repairing, of restoration. What does this strategy lead to? If you have a new structure, it is bound to be new. It is bound to be very much adapted to the current trends. We would conquer some waves of customers. It would be a very interesting being, but once concluded, we are left with this old bank and this new bank in the first place. So how would we progress? Would we leave them be? Would we leave them develop by themselves? We want our bank to be modern. Having two banks, it would be more than difficult to combine them all together in a way that you do not destroy the new one at the end of the day. So my belief is we need to redevelop from within, because our goal eventually is to recreate what we already have. Of course, by a new entity, you can address your current business directives, but all in all, it would be more than strenuous to have all these two banks combined in one. The very history of digital transformation is let we look at Inteligo now. It was an attempt in this direction. This very dispute over whether to repair or build is very much boiling down to the actual value that we stand behind. Are we capable of change, of managing change? If we are an organization which is well rooted, which is characterized by a robust legacy, which has been there on the market, based upon competences which are digital ready, we build, as this is supposed to be in the next step of our revolution. And within the banking sector, you have what you have. You mentioned Inteligo. It was in itself a superb product. It was developed, but it was developed for as many as 350,000 clients, and the remaining 5 million clients were left with nothing in terms of digital products. It is not a problem to create a fintech. It goes without saying you can develop one. But we want each and every fintech to progress. You need to either have money or scale. I just wanted to bring my utterance to a close. As Łukasz said, on the Polish turf, there are no grave competitors to our native fintechs. Fintech has dominated your utterance in the first place. Why would you develop a new institution, not to go through this whole revolution? No, it is pointless. We are big institutions. PKOSI, PKO, BP, please observe that these banks have been capable and agile enough in maneuvering on the market, and they did not have to build new banks. There were new banks in the pipeline. Alior, Lion Bank, Vorden. These are all startups. These are all startups that were developed under different circumstances. As for our place in this financial market, I think that we are very much adopting this current cultural changes. We are doing it. We are responding to what is going on. We are sampling, and therefore we can manage change, as all the changes that we enforce gain instantly the proper momentum. So whatever is come up with, we can scale it up very swiftly indeed. BLIK is a valid example. Revolut accelerated the currency exchange, whereas banks in a consortium did come up with the BLIK solution. It went global, and next year you'll be able to pay with BLIK all over the globe. So that's the way in which we think. Yes, indeed, you can pay via BLIK, and BLIK has been utterly successful, and this is something that can close up each and every discussion. This has been a tremendous success on the Polish turf. Thank you very much indeed, gentlemen, for this insightful discussion. This is just one point in Asseco Banking Forum conference. In a second, we are going to walk you to the cloakroom, and there, behind the scenes, you will see how you can take one of such package or box back. Let us have a look. My name is Tomasz Blicharz. I'm delighted to meet you again at session number 2. How is the world changing? How can we take this to our advantage? Let us get back to very deep past. Years ago at this Asseco Banking Forum, we were questioning ourselves if banks are going to sell pizza. A golf bank does. So let us look ahead. Let us have this passage to the future. How to avoid this banks which would be tailor-made. Let us see the chart. Even if you take advantage of the resources of leaders who once served as pioneers in terms of banks development, it was no guarantee to have the whole process enclosed within 10 months or so. Now we are talking about banks which appear and function in post-oligopolic epoch, banks that started as startups or fintechs. Let us go back in time to have a look at our personal experiences. When did you wear your first suit for a special occasion. What was of value? What was of essence? Personal taste. Tailors would need to take into consideration anything that would be dear to us. In terms of actual tailoring and communication, what do banks do? They follow suit. In the first place, they develop this very long period of analysis. They investigate. Do all these goals and objectives are subject to testing? Of course not. Banks are entering into newer and newer stages. They build up their architectures. They develop their processes within the project of institution building. Is this being tested? No. If we look at technology and the criteria behind selection of this or another technology within this six-stage bank development, do we test anything within the bank in the actual process? Of course not. We can enter into a different regulatory system. I once went beyond this. 15 minutes, all the formalities are done, the very ceremony, 10 minutes, the registry in 5 minutes. Within half an hour, you could bypass the regulations. Banks cannot accommodate this risk. They can't do otherwise. They have to go through all the 6 stages, beginning with taking measure, through building up the infrastructure, up to the actual scaling. Do they test? No, they don't. If they go into the pipeline of the actual processing, adaptation, customization, developing certain characteristics and features of a given program that would reflect 100% the features of the bank, do they test it? Yes, they do, but as late as in phase or stage 5 or 6, once the entire system has been accepted. Look at mobile apps. Who are testers? Testers are app beneficiaries. How long do you tailor make your suit? It takes a month. For the bank, this process takes years. How can we build a financial institution in the system? What can you change? How can you do things differently? How can you recalibrate the roles assigned to all the market players? How can you deliver all the elements that would make this entire system agile, tailor-made, something to mirror the very personal preferences of the client? What's the role on the part of the tailor? How can we redesign this entire set? How can we go into building up a partnership? How can we introduce certain flexibility into this scheme? How can we employ innovation processes? And ultimately, how can we deliver a product that will allow us to build a bank without having one? This is what you want to encourage you to do. Have a bank, build it, use boxes. You don't need to pay for them. Just benefit from these boxes and use them as a certain function. During the panel, we have also addressed other issues, be it how we can encourage these redevelopments. Should we have a fintech next to a bank? Should we redesign a bank in itself? Our approach is a kind of revolution. This is the way in which we propose to the system, the environment of financial solutions, an instant testing process. An environment in which you can verify your architecture, your usability, aptness of technology. And when you look at the entire road from fintech through the innovator that comes into the banking field and fills this institution with the proper tissue of business goals, then you push this organization through fintechs, challenger banks, and they go in large numbers in whole Europe. You've got mono-product banks, be it Revolut, that strive to go into the banking sector with very simplified products for individual clients and corporate clients. When you go in the life cycle of a bank, then you can test at each and every occasion. For each and every constituent of the bank, you can have hypotheses, you can test them, you can prove them or not. You may have a testing sandbox, which is a complete bank as such, or potentially you can address a certain stage in the life cycle of a bank, at the same time offering a ready platform that can cater for the actual accomplishment of the business goals.
Today, we have a premier bank out of the box, a solution created by Asseco, and which responds to all these questions and allows for a business operational test at each and every level of life of financial institution. The features stem from the needs of the market. The market has expected a test and well-defined processes, well-defined functions, and a full platform that once launched will have its parameters, will close the day, will do the batch process after the day, also using at the same time templates for bank products instead of long-term analysis and specifications, instead of waiting towards the end of analytic work, something that cannot be tested. And this area and this platform allows us to, first of all, use this test element, and also it is a platform that can catch up, is living with the bank, can respond to all sorts of regulations in the marketplace, making sure that the platform it always will be fresh, applicable in the banking markets. So entering the cloud and stability today, it's an obvious thing, but we offer this solution for different models, hybrid, private or public cloud, and traditional ones. It's 6-stage implementations based on licensing model. However, under the license and the fees, we go much further because we offer approach based of subscription, catalog of functions, so you can tailor-make them. You can select them, test and use under subscription plan. As everything is changing, fintechs work with banks, banks launch their own marketplaces. We are open to that as well. So we provide an opportunity to build for a wide range of the banking, also for e-commerce approach or other approaches. We're open to partnership. And the platforms, you can build interfaces easily. This is the feature that we very much focus on and provides a very dynamic feature. Today, when consumers are very demanding, they want everything cheap, quick, and secure. It's important that innovative processes are built in platform. And thanks to our Asseco Innovation Hub, we have built in it as a standard. We can prompt the customers, be always a step ahead of the market, and show the kind of features and functionalities in innovation are worth using and how they will return the investment. At the very beginning, we adopted that at each and every stage of the development of the organization, we can provide a test that will verify the innovation. So there are more and more institutions with no banking experience. Thanks to our solution, we also provide consulting packages inside. Inside we have 30 years of experience of Asseco Poland, over 400 implementations in 400 banks. We offered systems working in under different modes, 35 systems or more that can provide for very complex business functions, but want to close it within the context of the digital customer defined currently by the market. So we offer, under this digital revolution, a shift from understanding individual functions in individual systems towards understanding of the needs of digital consumer in the context of the product that is digital, and all the features that will become obvious in a while. So we'll leave the direct relation in a branch, something like that. And during pandemic, remoteness is becoming obvious. So we can provide the service to the customer in his or her local place. As we can see, what's happening in our closets at home, we do it as well. The box platform is offered like a capsule of functionalities, business processes offered as anything else under subscription. Subscription allows us to attain all this, to be quick, cheap, and safe. And the bank's business model can catch up with the reality. So this flexible support to institutions allows us to be a method for everyone. CEOs were discussing whether fintech or startup can be profitable. If you are flexible with subscription and you can address any model, we always can catch up. We can always have an answer, know how much something will cost versus the revenue that we can expect. 3 test formulas invokes this classical approach of 6-step or 6-day, even though we know it takes usually a dozen months. As stage to use the platform as a test platform in close relation with the customer, to know the almost biological needs of the customer. We can use this box as a test in our customer relation to see what the customer will be interested in, or we can launch the bank immediately, only then test all functionalities and hypothetical behaviors of the customer. We've put it like this, that you can build a bank in 6 days. You can click it. I'll try it in 6 minutes, actually. We have launched for the Polish and foreign banking sector a test sandbox that will allow us for business model, regulatory and functional tests. There is a configuring system that will click out the bank once you logged in. And to make the platform value, there are functionalities like configurator. Configurator can determine the market, the features that will define the location where an institution operates, and then we can select other elements. So it's all tailor-made, and we take the role of the designer. We can select the basic features of the system, determine the channels of communication. We can select functionalities and product sequences. The functionality is related to the local nature. To box platform has customization to each and every market to meet the regulatory requirements of a given market. And we also, while clicking out, we can obtain things that are difficult to obtain, like business intelligence, reporting, and distribution channels. Mobile internet banking is also a standard. Some other options, final measure, and we have a bank clicked out. What has happened is that we launched a specification in the cloud, a new bank of a comprehensive program. It's both retail and universal and institutional bank. As we have clicked out everything, we can send a file to make an appraisal. We can define the system, and we can, from now on, get into different functionalities of the system through different API interfaces, as the system is arranged according to Bayern architecture. So we have different views from the service and functional perspective, and we can test the system. That's important, especially for new institutions, startups, fintechs, who want to know, while not building and not having banking experience, how to use a bank or banking services. While building the sandbox, we can generate many systems. You can use the functionalities or enter them out, try to open the client definition screen, product factory, box bank is a lasting and lasting core of it. Here we can define the products and the client. We manage the logic behind the bank. From this view, we can define the entire structure, but also to test the bank's operation and to test how we can arrange new ideas, new concepts, and new innovative ideas. Let's check softer components, not only because we can also verify like distribution channels. So we log into the electronic banking system. We have access now to the systems which are launched together with other systems, because all the systems are integrated, and we can test functionality, or we can meet customer groups or focus groups, and in order to double check whether this product offer makes sense to them and profitable to us. Bottom line, everything is working as the sandbox is generated the different modes. In this model, you have not only product templates adjusted to the Polish market, but also test data package, so that you can go through the basic functions of the system. You can, for example, get into the data that define how the system operates. So you can see that the entire bank has been generated, and it took us precisely over 5 minutes, 37 seconds. So we encourage you to get registered, to learn about the features of the system, to use our sandbox and the Vox platform that is, as the CEOs have said, an ideal tool to test and to see what can be tested in order to provide and success to financial institutions at different stages of development. For registration and reading, we'll welcome you to the new boxasseco.com. Tomasz Blicharz, Asseco Poland, the man who has demonstrated that he's the only man I know that you can say that has a wedding shorts and slippers. Yes, you've been to the tailor. You can show not only how you can tailor make a bank, but also you look. Yes, that as due to pandemic, you know, the sizes change dynamically. It's been leased. Yes, so we're waiting for leaner times now. Okay, thank you very much for this presentation of what can be done using this special measuring room. And now a few words about what we can expect next. At this conference, we want to take you, among others, to Lubaczów, beautiful place. Thanks to the mode of this conference, we can fly, and the times that have opened us up to it. we talk about the banking sector and technology in southeastern Poland earlier. To be preceded by discussion what to change in technology today in order to be able to sell tomorrow, to be moderated by Tomasz Bittner, and there will be a conversation about how to respond to customers' needs, how to follow their needs, and what modern technologies allows us, how to apply it, how to use it. And towards the end of Asseco Banking Forum, there will be the question, why banks? It will be an inspiring presentation by Piotr Czarnecki, well-known banking management leader, academic lecturer. Asseco Banking Forum 2020, very exceptional. For the first time, you can take part remotely from any place in the globe, based on your own conditions. Of course, we would love to see you all here and to be able to offer you at least coffee and something else. Now, a coffee break. We'll meet again, reconvene in 15 minutes.
Good afternoon, my name is Tomasz Bittner and I'm delighted to be able to welcome you to the panel on which technologies should be implemented now so that we can sell tomorrow. We've got four participants. One takes part online, Łukasz Kozioł. Can I have you, Łukasz, introduce yourself? I was supposed to be sitting next to you, gentlemen. The current times are not much amenable to being present. I've been imprisoned by my kids on quarantine, therefore I'm speaking from home. Bank Ochrony Środowiska. I'm responsible for the entire area of internet banking, corporate banking, plus transactional banking, as well as guarantee banking. Therefore, the entire banking field lies within my capacities. Grzegorz Pędzisz, from whence you come, what do you bring with you? Ida Bank, CIO. I am responsible for the strategy, budgeting. In other words, I'm responsible for all the elements that make us operate from this operational point of view. Marek Klebicki, welcome. I'm IT strategy head, Raiffeisen Bank International. I'm responsible for the strategic development as well as transformation, which we dub A and B transformation of 13 banks making up the Raiffeisen Group in CEE. Marcin Ziemniak. I'm here as a representative of PKO BP, director of the development of sales applications. For the last few months, I've been at the head of the transformation project of the data migration to the cloud and center of excellence. This is another area of my operations. Łukasz, should you be willing to talk and it escapes our notice, just raise your hand as in school. Question number one, where to have a border, where to have a barrier in terms of bank digitalization? Can a bank be fully digital, or if not, to what degree may a bank be digital, where we can have this demarcation line in between these physical and digital bank. Can we withdraw from all our branches, physical branches? Can we have all consultants operating via the telephone, or can each and every credit product should be obtained per click or per clicks? Let me start off by saying that time has very much verified our previous expectations. If one would once imagine this demarcation line, it has recently shifted very much forward, and we can see it not only in banking, we can see it in the other fields, whereby the adoption of digital and digital services was once very hard to think of. Look at retail, it has all increased. So whatever we answer, whichever answer we give, this demarcation line still lies very much ahead of us and is actually progressing. Question number 2. Can we digital all the things? Yes, we can. Do we do it? No, we won't do it. Do we withdraw from this physical experience? In this context, my feeling is as follows. In nowadays banking, you can digitize all the things virtually, but it does not mean it will substitute all at once this very network of relationships with the client. What matters, though, is that whenever you develop digital or physical banking, you have to have it embedded within this environment of digital banking. Those two experiences should not vary, should not be divorced one from the other. Once we've managed to combine these two elements all together, it may make up a very cool experience for the clients. A recent experience of ours at Raiffeisen International, there's a solution allowing to contact digitally consultants to clients, sending over documents, signing documents. So this is a merger of a physical solution and its embedment into the digital one. Okay, drawing lines. Implications, borderlines are the ones that collapse at wars. There are always those who are trailblazers in terms of crossing these lines. We've got these lines, and those lines appear whenever things go not much to the benefit of business development. And we see that this scenario still is changing. So I won't impose any lines that they are, and we cross them in this natural path, as is the case for the government cloud. We were the ones to use it as the first players, and so we crossed the lines, and the regulator is now striving for these lines to be shifted further. Setting lines is out of the question. I think that all the things are possible today, and we could potentially digitize or automate all the processes. Does it have any point, or is it pointless? You have to be rational, reasonable in approaching these questions. Lines are set by clients in the first place. That's my belief, and banks should be whatever the clients are. So in COVID times, I believe we have experienced it very, very deeply indeed, and that was the experience of most less digital banks have lost their revenues in pandemic. So at PKO, we very remarkably approached hybrid solutions. Clients may service themselves in omni channels, but they need a contact. So there is this online consultant, so our clients can enter into contact with consultants should they have any questions, should they need any assistance. And I deeply believe in the meaning of this solution. Banking performs yet another very pivotal function, respective of relationships and their maintenance, especially in times when a given transaction is a bit more difficult, then the expectation is that clients can have people to assist them. How I look at it, in my opinion, client's perspective is of key importance. A client who these days don't think they would go digital to have their mortgage done, they might do it in a week or 2 weeks. Such processes are going to be more and more numerous, more and more disseminated, not only under the circumstances of COVID. Awareness changes, and so the use of technologies and solutions. So there's going to be this shift. So for us, of no lesser importance is how regulators approach these processes. So, in other words, how regulators let us go up to the moment in which we are digital and available digitally to the clients, and to what degree it is all accepted for which processes by the regulator, and it has to be reflected by our actions, so that this ratio of the progress is going to be more dynamic. We are not reinventing the wheel in Poland. When you look at how this process has looked for 3 or 4 years in the Chinese banking, and by the way, the Chinese bank is capable of providing a number of models that make client decisions more operational and link them to this credit decision. This is the kind of progress that we need to take advantage of. Right, so very much in a nutshell, just to conclude this question, COVID redesigned this playing field. Everything has had to go digital, but this situation, sooner or later, hopefully sooner, is going to return to normal. Do we see any processes that might stay only in this traditional version? Marcin is referring to this pledge to be whatever our clients are, and it pertains to these digital processes too. Okay, a question. Based on client experiences, in light of them, should we digitize all the processes? Irrespective, a large mortgage, is this a kind of process that the client would like to be dealing with only in digital? Technologies might have their limitations. We use analytical models, scoring, etc. in it. From the moment in which deep learning originated, we have seen an increasing growth of deep learning techniques in decision-making processes. They can be applied, though, in repeated actions. Algorithms have to learn, and they can learn whenever they collect data. And this happens at reiterated instances. If something is not to be repeated, if something is unique, there needs to be a human information involved. This technology has its hiccups. And there is this operational side, then claim management that normally happen at the back office. There's this entire life cycle of a product. So claim resolution, claim management is not an easy task. So this is going to stay in physical. There's this idea, server rooms, they exist physically. There are not all the things that can go to the cloud. So there is a number of examples that are now done manually and are going to be done manually in the future. Of course, there are more and more processes that could be digitized from the client's perspective, but eventually is it very much catering for the wishes of the clients? I would highly doubt that. There's need of a relationship. You need to talk things over. Look at us. How do we feel in our offices after 3 months working from home? Let's return to our offices, shall we? Many people pledge. So those things are going to stay in the manual. I would just set a line and ask, should we digitize all the processes, or should they stay digital or digitized, available only as a digitized service? Speaking from my perspective, whenever you develop a process these days, you base it on RBI and the omni-channel version. So this is one process, but then to be delivered in more than one channel, also digitally. So historically speaking, internet banking would differ to mobile banking, and it would differ to front end with consultants and clients in physical branches. Now we strive for having just one screen. Would a client be willing to go through this process all alone, or hand in hand with somebody, with a helping hand? That's a question of a different nature. But when you look at this ever-growing adaptation to online, whenever you develop something beyond this omni-channel, then you lose your economic advantage, something that you would have to compensate for once the client have grown enough for the adoption of it. I believe we are facing now with this transition, this helping hand of a consultant should be needed, but this is just to span through a very limited horizon, up to 5 years. Even the largest bank would restructure their administration and architecture, and a client that needs this physical contact would get it towards the very end of the entire process, once digital has proved insufficient to cater for the client's requirements. Huge transactions of business clients are based on relationships. They are based on a number of settlements, and therefore I believe this particular area will still require skills and competencies of consultants. Those consultants who are dedicated to individual products, and I think that's going to remain as standard as they are now. Paradoxically enough, will be going digital and omni-channel in each and every area. Should this progress this way, eventually and soon enough, a traditional bank is going to be a disruptor. They are going to be the only ones in a given avenue. So we'll be very soon returning to this relationship-based business. During our there's still an opportunity to ask questions online. The time has come. We can have one of them. When everything happens in digital channels, whereby the relationship is very fast, client versus the bank, how can we build up a scoring to be as dynamic as it can reflect and match this real-time needs in the cloud? It is to happen in the cloud. I was quick enough to respond. Nevertheless, it is all funded very solidly. Truth is that whenever you develop comprehensive machine learning models fast, if you are to do so, you have to rely on huge computational capacity. Usually, propensity models or fraud models dedicated to client scoring. Normally, you have to teach a model, you have to test it, and then you have to score it once in a while. So this very time of processing under limited infrastructural elements may have its limitations. If we were to do it in real time, we would need indefinite, unlimited computational power. In this light, some companies give away processors of not CPU or TensorFlow processing unit nature to just with aim to speed up the learning and scoring of such models. We had once MLO, fraud, propensity to buy models, in the past. Now we keep observing that as they use data, mostly of real-time interactions with clients, so the silos are going broken, which means decisions are being taken at the same time for fraud, credit risk, and what another product should be to be the ones to be suggested to vis-a-vis a client. So such models can only be developed within a cloud.
Yes, clearly the cloud processing time, so scalability of the cloud is here. And we can structure the process in such a way that the scoring moment takes place in an appropriate moment in time. And we have to develop the basis for decision. And there's no other way, I think. The number of data is so huge that we do certain things either before the decision, or we do it in the cloud and we scale it to the extent possible. We may not extend the loan to the customer and invite the customer to the branch office, but I think it's not the way. There is one more advantage. We can use more and more automated data sources, so we can get more data, and instead of filling in the form on the customer side or electronically, more and more often we can download the data in real time from various sources. So it's very important here that we can use it as much as possible, of course, with consent and collaboration by the client. But it can shorten the time of the processing of the loan application. I would like to spare a moment to discuss what's going on under the surface in the banking technology. What we as customer, but also people from the sector don't see. What's in this huge sandbox? If you were to point out just one technology that you know that it's being incubated and you attach great expectations to it professionally, what would that be? Next question, please. Yeah, no. Well, from technology standpoint, it won't be a salesman statement, but we enter the cloud, multi-cloud, hybrid cloud. This is where we go, and around that we build a strategy and teams. So I think in other banks, situation is the same, maybe on a larger scale. The sandbox is generally migration to the cloud, because for stability, for security, to diversify different centers based on the cloud, all this has to be taken into account. And a multi-cloud, overarching, and how to manage all that, including the private cloud. And this is the most important trend, I think, at least in our bank. Plus new sales channels, remote servicing of customers, mobility. But these are not the things that are surprising today for prospect customer. Well, I can't agree more, of course. What the customers don't see is that the banking systems more and more often operate in the cloud, not only in private, but also public cloud, well secured. Because as we are a bank, we have a lot of external regulations, rightly so, because they protect the clients. So implementing such solutions in a hybrid multi-cloud solution is a big challenge. But other than we migrate to the cloud, well, first of all, each non-cloud solution is obsolete. More and more of new technologies are automatically developed in the cloud. So if you build something on premise, it's either cloud agnostic and with easy migration to the cloud, or simply will be that. So innovation, new technology. Second thing, on the long run, is certain limitation of the operating costs. Banks are under strong pressure right now in order to lower, as the interest rates have been decreased. So we look for economies everywhere in the infrastructure as well. And the third thing are the new business functionalities available thanks to the cloud. Just 3 examples. One, development of digital ecosystems, because in the cloud, in the package, we obtain easier ability to get plugged in as systems of other partners through open APIs. Second thing is what's happening within the bank. So providing proper tools for collaboration, in particular with all experienced work from home under the COVID regime. So we know how these tools are important so that this work be efficient. And the third area we already mentioned is that of data and analytics. And most of the banks have a lot of data and information. Information is less and less structured. So it's like data streams that to manage other than in the cloud would be very difficult and very complex. I would add to what Marcin has said on the item 1, a very important, from my perspective, is the API-ification while integrating. So opening the banking, but not from the concept perspective, but as a hard work in the back office, as we often open up the legacy systems and make them to be able to communicate with front end and external channels. And I think this is a key aspect, which is not seen as a customer, how huge an effort has to be made so that we can open up our banks and realistically use and offer the customers new channels, new relations with new business partners, and solutions that would go beyond the traditional perception of the banking sector by the customer. We had a colleague from Allegro Pay. Such solutions can be consumed by the banks only when we are ready to integrate. So this reconstruction of integration layer, investment in API is a good direction and a major leap forward. Well, let me add one thing. You've suggested somehow what's going on, and I didn't tell her. We built, for example, what we can do for the customer. As an SME bike, we develop a new mobile application that will cease to be just a mono product or mono function one, but it will integrate areas of other services available through these open APIs. So it will be a window to many parabanking services. I'm talking of CDG, setting up the business activity outside of the bank. Łukasz. Well, I think the customers don't see much of a change from March. But, well, we've switched to remote channels. I think that the cloud and cloud-related solutions is something that every one of us is in. I would like to add something that somehow corresponds with what the previous speakers has mentioned. It's the part of the bank which operates in the background, offering sets of services, not only financial, through the channels, but at the same time, it aggregates both the banking sector and data from other banks so that the client can implement many processes together with us. And I think that solutions based on API is something that will provide positive change to the customers, because the sets of service, I'm not talking only about my bank, sky is the limit here. From insurance, not only motor insurance, but also tailored solutions and all that in neutral and transparent manner to the client. And in the online process, not touching upon any paper documents. And this is not the future from my perspective. It's a present time. You're talking about solutions that are about improvement of the banking infrastructure or data processing or providing new services to customers. What about onboarding in the digital? Do you see any technologies that can help to win new customers? Well, it's happening. It's been a direction, very dynamic for many, from scanning ID cards to faces and double checking whether it's a human being that is matching the ID card and checking with external databases. So the onboarding of a customer is there. We know how it can look. And from an email to simple data collected. But in the banking, it's a real, because we start the banking process, so the cash is flowing. So many banks has this onboarding process, and I only wonder whether we go can we onboard a customer without the ID card? There's a solution. You pay with the face. So instead of documents, we don't have a document and we can make a transaction. Of course, earlier you have to do this onboarding and to compare data. Well, biometrics, it took a long time to enter banking, and it's not so much in the brick and mortar branch offices other than mobile banking. Well, with external data, biometric databases, you can imagine that thanks to that, you could onboard a customer based on the facial recognition. Well, I would like to relate that it's only all depends on AID. To what extent customers will be able to digitize their identities and their credentials, and to make them available in such a manner also to be used by financial institutions. I think this is the only possible barrier, because all these verification, signatures, biometrics, all these components are ready and available. And from the perspective of 14 countries where I operate, in most of them, each of these models can be used. There are small regulatory differences, so that in one or two locations make it impossible to use fully digitized on customer onboarding. But even there, we develop it, because in a while this regulation will be amended, so you should be prepared anyway. What is a challenge if you go forward, talking about EIDs, is the flow of customers between different countries outside of the national borders. As when we take our ID or passport with us, the EID that we have in Europe in each country are different, and they don't communicate. So with this increased flow of customers between the national borders, it may be a restriction or limitation, but we can expect some directives that will standardize certain interbanking operations. So eventually, I think there will be one ecosystem where everyone can plug in. So Europe-wide or maybe globally, you can operate with your digitized identity. The onboarding is, of course, means digital identity. It's a very important item. We have to comply with EML law. As we know, banks in Poland, at least, are leaders in the management of digital identity. Thanks to these credentials in the bank, we can log in to certain public administration services. So more and more of the banks, such as PKO, Bank Polski, opened up. You can use the selfie and get on board. But as banks get into different services, not financial ones only, I think we shall develop the onboarding process in a light version, so not under the EML direct law, so where you won't be able to open up a current account in such a manner, but you will be able to buy other products from outside of the financial world, not on email, but with additional functionality to verification. With verification, you'll be able to do. We welcome you to our new mobile banking. You have revealed one of the functionalities on my. So I will. It's without an account. We have yet another question from our audience. Voice assistants and chatbots, will they replace the customer advisors, customer consultants? And the next question, whether digital client, irrespective of their status, will get a tailored offer, or on the contrary, as there will be automation everywhere and chatbot services will be streamlined or have one common denominator. I'm very interested how it will develop in Poland, because I've been watching very carefully the market in America once after Alexa was introduced. And I was under great impression when I could see how many Alexas were in American homes. Alexa has skills. The skills is nothing else than what is the conversation topic we can use. One of the skills was the banking, how to make money transfers. And among my friends, residents in the States, it's very popular. But it's the reason is that Alexa speaks very well English, but not very well in Polish. At the moment in Poland, we have one communicator by Google that on your mobile can talk to you in Polish, but the home one, not necessarily. So once the communicators begin to well operate in Poland, I wonder which direction we will go. What will happen? Will the customer get tailored offer or not? So there will be, all equal. A chatbot is nothing else than change of a communication interface, so the back end processes will be there. But instead of filling in or click the forms, we will do it by voice. So there is no major difference from the perspective what's under the chatbot. Yes, please see once how you create this conversation scripts and so on. Other than the sound of the human sound of the consultant, it's already automation, not going beyond the script and possible answers. The answer is yes, it's only a matter of time. Yes, I started with Poland, how it will develop, because again, we'll face certain habits of the customers. The question is, will they be willing to talk to chatbots? We've expanded our service where you can talk to a chatbot. but I just wonder whether it will reach a certain scale. Will the clients be willing to do it, to use it? I think it's also a matter of awareness of on both sides. Us on the banking side, where we use the chatbots, to what channels, what processes, to what topical range, but also customer education so that they use it. Or maybe today we just switch an age often switch on the chatbot and we don't inform the customer. The customer has to find out whether they talk to a human or a machine, because they, well, knowing with what kind of solution they face, they know the limitations, they know what they can expect from it. But having a choice, they can use different. But we have to know limitations so that once the solution is not sufficient or fine-tuned from the process perspective, because it's a constant learning process, so that we know where we can use such solutions. And we're not talking about one bank, but we talk about hundreds of solutions which are tailored or adjusted to different components. And it's important that we know how to tailor this architecture of chatbots.
This knowledge is of key importance. Please once have your chatbot if you want to change your password. Look what happens. We had such an episode. There was also an exception for the board. Because not every internal customer could resist this chatbot thing. We have our channels of communication. I've got the impression that Łukasz, who is today via online channels, far less active. Do you have anything to add on these matters when it comes to digital? We are also confronted with chatbots and bots in general. It is not an easy task, and it is not limited to the client's side, that a client has to know when they speak to a machine and when they speak to a human. Now, we need to consider various scenarios of dialogue paths. The very banking process, the very claim process, the very client support process, if we don't shift these areas, and the more experiences we got, and the more neutral this mechanism is from the perspective of the client, and eventually what counts is for a client to get their business done. It doesn't matter if it is about the claim or a given product. Clients are interested, most care about to be satisfied. You can, clients search for hotels through platforms, 1, 2, or 3, and it is just enough, and it is more than enough to see just pictures and then have a booking. And I think the experience of the clients would be very similar in our industry. But at the end of the day, if the client gets what they wish, then it doesn't matter if it is a man or a machine, if it is a board or something else. Should they get positive outcome, it would go for it, and it would be, from now on, a very natural customer behavior. What we are missing now is this comprehensive set of experiences. As look at Alexa in the States, as our colleague said, we are now a bit conservative. We, as a bank, we as the pool of our clients, but this is, in my opinion, a matter of time. Eventually, when this process is going to get fully standardized, neutrally or positively assessed by our clients, I'm pretty calm. And I'm witnessing these developments, and at times I'm a bit surprised how many processes can be transplanted to the online area. There is always this possibility to have a contact with the actual consultant. where a competent human being is needed, but the more knowledge is based on algorithms shifted to this virtual space, the more responses to to our clients can be delivered via this very channel. As few as 20 minutes left. Fraud counteraction is becoming more and more pregnant problem in banking, especially since frauds are going to be taking advantage of newer and newer, more and more modern technologies. What should the banking industry be expectant of technology to be able to counteract it more effectively? I would not frame this question within security and safety in the context of fraud. What do we expect? What do we require? No, I would approach it differently. This element, as it is for the cloud, it has to be approached by the banking frauds. Change in the banking have to respond in a relevant mode. We have to be up to date in terms of developing mechanisms and measures to protect us against frauds. But all in all, we have to raise awareness amid our clients, because in this world of frauds, the biggest risk for a client is the client themselves. So we arm our clients with protective measures, authorization mechanisms in the mobile channel. That's the way we should go in the environment of frauds. And that's the major road that we need to bear in mind. IDEA once offered, if I remember correctly, a program to protect their devices. We continue to do so. It has proven effective, and we are not talking about some large scale. We know that particular banks may raise awareness of the clients, that there is a website very much into phishing, and there are entered for whereby we exchange information about it. But to provide a client with an actual measure whereby we see on how many instances a client is warned that they are about to have a transaction which is suspicious, as said, that's the way we need to pursue. This is where we combine fire and water, those two elements. We want to have client-oriented processes to be as simple as possible, and on the other hand, we've got this security thing, anti-fraud thing, whereby compromises mustn't be present. Right, back to the question, what is a bank? What are clients' expectations vis-a-vis a bank? Trust remains to be a foundation of this relationship, i.e. there is no risk of having some leakage of data. And from this perspective, when we look at our investments, it is fair to say, for me, that setting priorities on anti-fraud security is still our thing. It has to be a field whereby we invest in adequate measures, no compromises, as said. Right, so let me move on this topic, the very concept of cybersecurity first. It has to be employed by the banks. It goes without saying, because criminals have gone online and have gone digital, and it has happened a long time ago. So tools for cyber criminals, this very repertoire, is being developed very fast indeed. So we've got the security of the clients, we've got the security of ourselves, because such spectacular actions have never touched upon, have not only touched upon institutions, they have touched upon the very states. So as regards the scale, it is now to be dubbed global. So banks, given their function, are to perform an ever more important task in this macro scale. All in all, um, our units keep defending us against cyber criminals. We do invest in clients' knowledge base. We keep investing in our systems. They need to be protected as good as possible. And we ask our clients for patience. If you want to deliver a product, then it is not to happen fast, as we need to make sure security is there, so that these products are not susceptible to wrongdoings of criminals and crooks. So herein, the investments in cyber are going to go their highest. Those criminals are not, as you know, as said, small crooks. These are fully fledged organizations. We once decided to, we ourselves decided to go in higher. We open up, we invite cloud solutions, and by doing so, on the one hand, we boost our profits and revenues, but on the other hand, cyber security is something that we need to acknowledge. So there are those two sides, two parallels. There are criminals, they put every effort into developing themselves, but we set our own requirements that we later have to abide by. So we need to look at the cloud from the security perspective as well. In the previous channel, there was a talk over are the banks needed? Can fintechs take over the client space from the banks? So this fintechs will never replace banks, because accountability and responsibility around the clients should always be within the banking industries, with the banking infrastructure. So should we give it away to fintechs, many things would go falsified. Fintechs cannot grasp the scale. They should invest lavishly in cybersecurity if they wanted to compete in this field. We talk about frauds, but there is this one topic which is akin to it, that is the protection of the personal data of the clients. And here there is also a very special role to play and to be played by the banks, and we need to have it in eye as our competitive advantage against not only fintechs but also against big techs. So Łukasz might have an impression that he has been technologically excluded. Łukasz, do you have anything to add on the topic of frauds? I'll try to have some reflection upon what has already been said. 100 years back, if a client were to choose a bank, they would have been interested in how thick the walls of a safe were. Now, time has changed, and it's now very uneasy for a client how this security is, if it is really tough. And many clients would be very surprised to see how many attacks banking institutions have to defend themselves from. So still, there is this digital war which has broken off and is ongoing at this intersection in between banking and this dark force side. So this chase is going to be, as said, ongoing. Banks are normally gates to further institutions, public offices. Thanks to this intermediary role, clients can have many services in place, and we are the actual guardians to client security. And it goes without saying to admit that not any startup, a fresh organization without well-founded roots in this regulatory field could potentially act effectively against such threats. And I believe that this evolution in terms of how we approach money safety and data safety, data security is something that mustn't be compromised now and in the future. It is all well embedded and enshrined in the bank's DNA. There is no way back. And I think that such forces within our organizations would continue to gather force, because that's ultimately something most important from the bank, to be a guardian of security. Okay, so I try still, even if I am excluded digitally, I try to take the floor. You have technologies popping up here and there. How to evaluate them now? What are the mechanisms that we can potentially employ if we want to assess the actual value and a potential of a given technology? How to categorize a given technology? Let us have a proof of concept. This one goes to be produced, this one rather not. How do you approach it? From the perspective of your question, at the end of the day, this is all boiled down to business, and this is ultimately a business decision. So as a business, we need to believe that whatever is then delivered to a client will be confronted with much demand on the part of the clients. Clients would very willingly use it, would grasp it, and we need to be sure clients' needs are dealt with, and we deliver something of a promise to a client. And there is also some positive business case. So that's first of all. Secondly, you have to bear in mind one thing. These days, solutions are normally of a modular nature. So these can be pretty fast integrated within our organization, and they can be tested with our clients. This can promise us an infinite space for maneuver for us to have a POC in the first place, and then to qualify a given product for production. And it spares us half a year talking over whether something is to be let in for POC acceptance. And I couldn't agree more. When migrating to the cloud, we take decisions about modern technologies day by day. The very migration may be about translating a given system for the sake of a new technology. Such decisions come very frequently. One example. Our engineers are largely trusted, and their task is to check within POC how much a given image differs from what is sold to us to how it actually works within this whole machinery. Plus, there are some other elements to be taken into consideration. There is this entry threshold. Given the POC, the entry threshold has to be pretty low. Plus, we experiment with new technologies, and all in all, we don't want to boost our capex, to invest lavishly, just to be constrained to leave it soon. So cheap scaling, cheap experiments with new technology, and this is what we are fed up with, especially in the cloud space. Another thing is the very solid knowledge about a product. So we want our source codes to be available. We want the source codes to be scanned by means of our machines, from the angle of cyber security and from the angle of affordability. It also matters to know if our employees can manage it, can service it, to what extent it is replicable. So there is not only the product, it is also about technology and maintenance. So besides the very architecture, we've got other elements, i.e. tools of the environment which are necessary for a swift development and implementation of changes. In our case, we try to split in between two things. Number one, the choice of technology that we are wishing to implement. Common places that we need to have this solid knowledge, CNVP, POC, we've got various methodologies that serve the sake of having this technology experimented around and investigated into, plus all the decision-making processes that come into play. That's number one. Secondly, there's this second testing stage. Again, POC, but these are programs that we do jointly with our suppliers. We don't want to implement it. We just learn and test. We learn and test to gain knowledge, to be able to determine which is the way to go in the future. So we want to have a team who have tested on multiple solutions, and the more robust it is, the easier it is for us to take decisions business-wise. So there are two elements which are inextricably interwoven with each other, and we are tasked with their development in parallel to each other. Plus, there are people who want to deepen their knowledge. All right, so far so good. Yet another question.
It's related to a very important trend of sustainability and responsible development. Many banks have it in their missions, but it's not only a question to Łukasz. My point is that there is a group of clients for whom these things are very important. When we talk about how to sell in the future, they will be asking, what do you do to solve the above problems? Those people who organize climate rallies will be your customers in 5 years' time, and they will ask you what you do for sustainable development. What's your answer then? Łukasz, I think you should begin. Despite appearances, it's not the most important question, but it's worthwhile to address it. If we talk about environmental protection, in our Bank of Environmental Protection, in our DNA, we have it that at least half of our production to finance the customer be oriented or go to green technologies or eco layer, whatever term you like. We don't talk about more greenwashing, more green than it is. But we give our clients slightly more than the rest of the market, meaning that we provide access to the state-of-the-art technologies, not only available in Poland. We provide ecological, environmental advice. We have environmentalists, ecologists who support the projects. And we measure how we affect the environment with our activity on the long run as well. I'm not only talking about the paperless work or our approach to vehicles, low emission vehicles. That depends on all the bank. But I'm talking also about verification of our processes and how we affect the environment. And we try to strike the balance and find out whether each and every transaction is good for us and ROI is the most important thing, or can we be complementary with kind of gut. Yes, and here I have to interrupt you. Yes, gentlemen, what you do, each one of them, from the perspective of technology, digitization that we are discussing today is the activity towards sustainable growth. Because if we look how much paper was produced historically by a medium-sized bank. What we do today is changing it drastically. So this is the first short-term objective. But looking more broadly at system build is to prevent exclusion. We must remember about the elderly clients, those who have no access to the smartphone or internet, and taking into account this group of clients from the holistic perspective of our processes and how we approach the digital aspect. But it's very important to provide access to them. So from RBI perspective, it's very important. One example from our organization that the decision-making process concerning CSR and responsibility for environment, and we included in different decision processes. One is our collaboration with suppliers. So if we talk about big capital project, infrastructural project, we take into account the corporate social responsibility very much. I can't agree more. Other than this, I think the cloud is also the element that has an influence on positive, well, even climate effect. Banks have invested a lot, having their own centers, even going beyond their current needs. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for this conversation. We had Łukasz Kozioł of Bank Ochrony Środowiska, Bank of Environmental Protection, Mark Bicki, Raiffeisen Bank International, Marcin Dzienniak, PKO BP, and Grzegorz Pędzisz, Idea Bank. And I have a pleasure to invite you to the next session. It will be presentation by Mr. Paweł Kapel, President of Cooperative Bank in Lubaczów, who has completed implementation of joint internet platform, a new system from Asseco. Let's welcome Mr. President. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Paweł Kapel, and I have a pleasure as President of the Board of Lubaczów Cooperative Bank to manage the bank for 10 years. Today, I would like to briefly tell you about a breakthrough project we've just completed, and it's a migration of the systems of our bank to the joint IT platform by Asseco Poland. Before I tell you about it, I would like to answer a question I can hear quite often. Why? Why did we decide to migrate the bank to WPI? In order to answer this question, I have to say what I'm saying, and we as the board, how we address our employees. Client, the customer, is the most important for us. For our bank, and I think for all the other banks servicing their customers, the customer has been and will be number one. We are for the clients, and thanks to them, we exist. As a cooperative bank in Lubaczów, we want the client to feel comfortable and safe in our branches, to trust us and to work with us. We are a local small financial institution. And we knew that in order to build this trust, to retain the customers and to encourage them and to onboard the new ones, we have to work on in many areas, especially now during the growing demand for innovative and state-of-the-art and easily available services required by the clients. The transformation process in our bank, we started quite a long time ago, but a milestone was the year 2017, when we gave the clients new headquarters with the branch office. That has improved the image of our bank in the local marketplace. You can see here our new headquarters with the branch office of our bank. And as I said earlier, it has clearly improved the image of our bank in the local marketplace. And being convinced that technologies, that we have this base we can build upon, and knowing that technology is very important, as important as infrastructure, we've focused on customer service quality, and we want to go further, providing more tools to our clients. And this is why the next milestone in our development strategy was to improve the quality and the pace of servicing to match the best. The customer is supposed to spend as much time as necessary in the bank, but we want them not to feel that they waste their time. We wanted the employee to focus on the clients, their financial conditions and needs, and not only on technical processing. Another important aspect we've focused on are internet electronic channels and how to service the client using those channels. It's important that we provide stable solutions of high quality where the services offered are modern. Electronic channels provide the image of the bank in a way, but also through those channels you can onboard clients, you can sell our products, you can open a bank account via online, and you can apply for a loan and get a loan. And we wanted to have such solutions in our bank. Another aspect that was very important to us are the employees, because the quality of service, customer service, depends on the operation of the bank. This is where the process starts, process of servicing and money earning. This and the back office and the working environment will influence the efficiency and effectiveness of the employees. As an employer, we should provide the best possible tools to service the clients. Here you can see a screen of Asseco ABP system that works with the core, thanks to which the employee is walked through the process of banking product sales process. Well, all these aspects I've mentioned have made us look for solutions among providers, IT providers. There are many, but we wanted the process to not to generate unprojected cost and to be done quickly and with the resources that we have. We've been operating all the time. Nevertheless, a very important thing was to implement a comprehensive solution. We didn't want to run several projects. We didn't want information chaos, never-ending meetings, number of contracts, and so on. We wanted to work with a company with well-established market position and well tested. And having had good experience of cooperation, we've selected Asseco, knowing that flexible approach to us and will provide good fruit and well implemented project. And together with Asseco and the cooperative bank in Płońsk, that we've been implementing the project with, we decided to build our common IT platform, being a solution not only to us, but mainly maybe also to other banks that will decide to establish collaboration with us. So that the banks that use the solution have the cutting edge solutions with low implementation cost. As Asseco proposed business model allows to plan and cut the costs, operating costs, and today with the decreasing interest rates and increasing requirements of the customers cannot be overestimated. I think each one of you may wonder how this business model looks like. I don't want to speak on behalf of the Asseco employees and present the offer, but I can say 3.0 or 3 times O. What does it mean? That means that the solution available on the WP installed in Asseco's cloud. So we haven't had any cost of the technological platform. We didn't have to worry about that. The subscription model proposed by Asseco have provided a license, and we pay a monthly fee. So we haven't paid for the software license. All the work that involved migration and personal tracing is financed by the cost of capital cost and within the subscription fee. So we didn't, migration and implementation of the platform didn't cost us a penny.
Three times zero means as much as the following. By the time of the production start, we haven't gotten any invoice from Asseco. We have dedicated our time to sitting meetings, to developing ideas. Still, the invoice hasn't been given away, and the invoice is going to be issued upon the signature under the protocol, under the acceptance protocol. The only pay that we need to incur is this monthly subscription fee, which is in itself dependent on the number of accounts used and the number of functionalities that we require. This is a foreseeable fee amount, and it's going to grow along with the number of clients. So within this fee, what we get is a complex IT service, then IT BPO. This is all available as a service within the SaaS architecture. A relatively fast migration system. The business model made it possible for us to address all the transformation objectives which we had at the beginning of the process. And from September this year, we are working now in our bank on joint IT platform. What are we getting from this monthly subscription fee? What's in the package and what do we use? So, above all, we take advantage of this complex IT service within all the banking areas. That is, modern transaction systems, which enables development possibilities. API, one joint sales front end supporting the sales of business banking products, loans, etc. So a banking employee does not need to go all the nuances of the system because they are walked through friendly apps. Our clients can use those services in any place they want, and those services are going to be further expanded to accommodate for novel functionalities. We have shortened the time for the opening of an account, or to up to 6 minutes, and at the same time we did manage to minimize the risk which would normally occur at this process. And another thing which gladdens us, we've got very comprehensive measures of credit scoring, and this is integrated with the actual credit sales. And shortly we'll be able to give away those credits to our clients via digital channels. Together with Asseco and the location of Płock, we have come up with the content distribution system, which helps us communicate with a client in a cheap and easy manner. Now, when we talk about the giveaway of the distribution of terms and conditions to our clients, we know what are the costs behind it. Furthermore, we've got access to data warehouse, which means that we can dig data that we need, and it will be immensely helpful in plentiful areas, and it will streamline many of our actions. Then when it comes to management, accounting, ALM processes, this also has been streamlined. These were the processes that we needed on our part. Thanks to this, we can focus on what we know best. On the one hand, and on what we are closest at. We can concentrate on the actual client, and we can deliver better quality services to our clients. As you see, ladies and gentlemen, on the Asseco part, on our part, and there is this obligation to maintain the server room within SAS, so we can basically forget about the cost that we would otherwise have to incur in the future. So Asseco deals with the administration of the application, business applications. It does also administer the task of operation day closure, month closure, and year closure. So it is, as said, within this fee. And this is all to be managed for us by Asseco. Moreover, we are hopeful to be ever more focused on satisfying the client's needs business-wise, and it should be translated into our tangible gains. Plus, I hope that our clients appreciate what we've achieved for them. We're looking forward to receiving better quality of customer service, and it should also be then translated into our greater revenues. Why have we done it? Why have we decided to pursue this path? I've actually touched upon this issue. Do we think about the entire sector? I'm not ambitious enough to be a trendsetter towards other banks. That's just a proposal, that's just a suggestion, that's just an invitation to take part in a joint project, i.e. joint IT platform. We've got 2 banks in it now, and we are hopeful to be receiving further units too. So upon the actual confrontation live, to see how it all operates, other banks could also take their business decisions to take advantage of it. What we've done on our part is that we have taken this very first step. And the Bank of Lubartów and Płock had much to do in the beginning, and now we are ready to share this knowledge. And just to bring this utterance to a close, I would like to express our gratitude to our employees and employees at and the location of Lubatov. Hours, hundreds of hours of meetings that would be for sure result in such projects done more efficiently in the future. Mr. President, thank you. And congratulations on this implementation. Lubatov is a beautiful spot. I would like to set up an account in your bank without heading for Lubatov, though Lubatov is to be considered a very nice place. So a smartphone, a photo, and here I am, the beneficiary of the Lubatov bank. When is it supposed to happen this way, more or less? Recently, together with Mr. Pomianek, we've talked it over. It's inasmuch problematic that it does not rely on technology merely. The question is it going to be profitable? All right, but soon enough, without heading to Lubatov, I could have my bank account started in Lubatov. There's market demand. We need to respond to it. The president of the cooperative bank in Lubatov, thank you very much indeed for this presentation, President. And now, another point in our agenda. Another point in the agenda of the Asseco Banking Forum 2020. They speak about themselves as similar to Netflix. Now, AI, machine learning, marketing, automation, innovative solutions which are implemented, put to practice in the C production. Now over to Daniel Mączyński, Vice President of Komago's board, and Marta Bruchua, Manager of Asseco Poland products. My guest is Daniel Mączyński, Vice President of PragmaGo. Can you tell us a bit more about your company, please? PragmaGo is one of the largest non-banking institutions which function on the Polish market. It delivers capital to micro, small and medium-sized enterprises, thanks to which entrepreneurs can save their time and so be able to develop their businesses sooner. We've got a very vast repertoire of business services which are as hugely diversified and the ones to respond to the demands of the clients, thanks to the investments into IT, and also in our signature Pragma scheme, we can deliver a lot to our partners from various industries. To banking, online banking, we function in different integration models. Also, we cooperate with Allegro. Taking advantage of the existing technologies, we can automate the process of sales and marketing. Therefore, we can jump at the development of our activities without incrementing costs. Let us talk over the automation of marketing. Recently, I've read a report of Nucleus Research, in which read that companies which launch marketing automation can save their costs at 12.2%, and sales are boosted as well. What does it look like from your perspective? We know from the very beginning that the very marketing automation is something irrevocable. It is indispensable. We want our clients to be equipped with information about products that can help them out in very particular situations. Now we would like to foster our campaigns to include behavioral learning and machine learning. Now over to my colleague to show that you are also the leaders in this domain. You are into the synthesis of data from various industries. What's the state of play here? Let us have a step backwards. Let's shed some light on marketing automation and the associated term customer data platform. If we speak about the marketing automation, herein we embrace all the marketing campaigns which are supported by IT systems. For example, we've got CRM systems that have been launched in various institutions. In this field, we observe that thanks to this, venture institutions can save by around 25%. Now, when we talk about customer data platform, this is the space where we discuss the accumulation of data, be it data from transactions, be it data from online, be it data from social networking sites. Thanks to this, we can rely on we can count on better profiling of a client, and so we can attach better data to our offers to clients. We've got a number of fantastic specialists in our companies, and they pick up best self-learning platforms, especially ones that would be optimum to our needs. Thanks to this approach, we can have more and more clients. One, which is in itself evocative of greater conversion, sales conversion. What does it look like in practice? You will see in a second. On our part, as a technological company, we are capable of implementing these solutions within as few as 3 months from the moment in which we sign a contract. Over to the presentation of the system now. The system has been split into 3 major functionalities. Above all, we talk about lead management assistance. Next, we've got client-related areas. That is, we investigate into the repertoire of client behaviors, and there is also the product area. Looking at the screen, you see more than 10 functionalities that we get from clients. In the first place, we've got leads. Then leads are split into cold, hot, and prospect leads. Hot ones are the most interesting from the point of view of financial institution. Here, you see something that we got from the Pragmago company. Next, speaking of the split and classification of the leads and their further juxtaposition of the months, there is an evidence-based increment of interest. There is also this possibility to attach a given status to leads. Furthermore, we can monitor which devices serve the clients to get to the Pragma servers. And in another interesting graph, we see the visits and how various groups of prospective clients go through these visits. On the one hand, we can look at it daily, on the other hand, monthly. A nice peak speaks about the virtual absence of interest over weekends. Then, on Mondays, activities of those clients are boosted. Further still, if we talk about different sources, we speak about the hits from those people who recommend the services. And if we talk about the analysis of the product, we need to say that we support people from production, but we mustn't forget salespeople. In these categories, we analyze the interest around the product, and we can also say which product is a bit less interesting for a given group of clients. Going further, if we focus on people, and here we talk about hot and cold leads respectively. This is where we dig very deep into seeing how those people move. What's substantial though, and that's the actual kernel of this system, statistics aside, we need to strive for a dedicated tailor-made offer for these clients. we see clearly that in terms of cold leads, we've got a separate product line, whereas for hotter clients, hotter leads, there are other factoring products ascribed. We also repeat graphs that are evocative of how many times a website has been hit. Another set of interesting solutions are information about internet browsers and a selected group of leads. Over to the last category, that is the prospects.
Prospect customers mean hot leads, those who are very much interested in our offer. For them, as I said, we have dedicated offers, providing product proposals, offerings, but we've expanded the screen with additional functionalities, because for financial institutions, from the prospecting perspective, it is important to give dedicated offers to those who have left their details, who have not dropped the contact forms, but have contacted a given financial institution. It wouldn't be so much innovative if not for the fact that using the AI algorithms, we can properly divide the leads and to check, to see what to do, to tailor products to them. And the tool allows us to manage a campaign, for example, through dedicated banners with the content matching the behavior of the user on the site. And we use different electronic channels, thanks to which the tool can be a virtual assistant and almost as effective with the product selection as a human. Of course, from the back office, we can parameterize business rules. Of course, we base on machine learning as well. As Daniel has mentioned, we can present as tailored an offer as possible. We can get adjusted to suit the needs of the customer. But our system services not only potential clients, but also supports customer analysis for financial institutions, also customers who have left an institution. We talk about customer journey through onboarding and while customer leaving. We talk about 4 aspects. First of all, we win the customer. We analyze the behavior through different channels. Then we present a dedicated offer to that potential prospective customer. Then we match the customer with the already onboarded customer. So he or she becomes customer of, we can cross-sell, upsell. Next stage is a monitoring. What can happen to the customer? What can happen wrong? Here we talk about different risk weighing. We're not talking about loan risk, but the risk is that they potentially leave a financial institution, that they quit. So to that group, we can also present dedicated offer to retain them. And the last group are the lost customers. Here we can reanalyze them and then draw conclusions why they have left the financial institution. But the system has one more important functionality. It's integration with bots. And we can analyze both the conversations and chats. So the customer analysis is even more in depth. Ladies and gentlemen, next year will be a challenge to all of us as far as innovative technologic solutions go. According to recently published report by the Economist Intelligence Unit, by the end of 2023, companies will be willing to invest in marketing and automation. But what's important, financial institution, 48% of the marketing budget will allocate towards implementations based on self-learning, machine learning, and AI-based systems. Daniel, if we're to summarize our topic, how to make your offer attractive and to win the customer, how could you summarize? Well, with the trivial thing, these are, of course, activities that are centric to customer needs. Secondly, in this systemic distribution system, to provide services to ecosystems of partners in different sectors, we want to automate the analysis of leads, prospects, contracts, because thanks to that, we'll improve our sales processes. Thirdly, until recently, we've collected a lot of data about our users, but we didn't use it for an in-depth analysis and for personalized offer. Today, we can implement machine learning in our ecosystem in such a manner that we can accompany our customers at every stage of our cooperation to collect data about their changing needs and immediately modify our products and processes. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. From the technology perspective, it's first of all 3 key items. Data in one location, data from various locations, increased sales, in-depth customer analysis, by the same token, lower attrition of customers. Asseco Banking Forum 2020 in the new formula due to the times, but thanks to that, many of you can take part for the first time or remotely based on your conditions. I hope you'll stay with us. We have yet another item to the agenda. A lot was said about technology, of course, about the banking sector as well, but we've dealt mainly with now let's talk about the banking landscape. Why banks? That's the question. Well, it suggests that they serve some purpose. Well, of course, we tend to forget, or can we be persuaded by this? I could talk about this, that he's a one-man band, but I think he prefers to be in the cloud, even though he feels, as a soloist, business leader, expert of the banking sector, lecturer Piotr Czarnecki. He used to be the president of one of the banks in Poland. Will be a presentation about the banks, but also going va-bank. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Well, why banks? What do we need them for? Well, basically, it's such a basic, fundamental question that when I was asked to meet you yet another time at this Asseco Banking Forum, I just recollected all these earlier meetings when I told you about how banks would change. But as Mr. Tańlewicz has said, I think we tend to forget what banks really are. And very often, in our subconscious mind, not only personal as customers, but economic consciousness or awareness, there is a quinto effect. Maybe you remember that character of the film va-bank. At the very end, it was a robber, asked the old guy, why did you broke this strong boxes in so many banks? And he said, well, the reason was always the same, because that's where the money is. And very often, it is precisely how we think. Not only we, but let's look at one of the first, unfortunately, functions of the banks. For 5 years, they've been the milking cow to the state budget, to the central budget. From the CIT, corporate income tax, among 10 biggest taxpayers, 5 were banks. It's not all. Because CIT plus the banking tax is 10 billion zlotys a year. And the tax rate imposed on the banks, and the banking tax is the highest one, not only in Europe, but probably globally, because I haven't found any single country with a bigger bank tax, but calculated on loans as well. And these are the driving engine or lubricating engine. So 10 billion zlotys the banking system pays to the central budget, and that's 40% of the actual tax rate. No one pays such tax, neither we personally nor any other costs. So this milking cow has led this Fintos syndrome, that's where the money is, to the situation where the profitability of the banks is very much weakened, and the banking margin has decreased clearly. Half of this margin is sucked out as taxes, plus one more important thing, insurance. So it's a system that is not only self-funding and paying taxes, but also self-insuring via the banking guarantee fund. So the profitability is lower, the repercussions or implications are much bigger. Banks are not a good capital investment. No one at his or her senses will put the money in the banks and their developments. Why? Because return on capital is at the level of 3%. And please bear in mind, if we look at various countries in Europe, we have the lowest return on investment due to, among other things, the banking tax. While at the same time, banks provide for increased consumption. It means household loans. We are pretty good financial leverage. We support consumption. It's over 700 billion zlotys in loans. And talking about corporate loans in various products, it's another 360 billion. So this is the lubrication of economy. So in other words, providing additional equity or additional capital for it to develop. So the banks keep funding the business community, but they have still a lot to do. Why? Because our driving engine are SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises. And we have it not very well developed. You need more money for them. If it's sucked out of the bank, how can we provide the funding for SMEs? And bear in mind one thing, that they need capital investment and an investment in automation, digitization, computerization. 39% of all the robots works is related to automotive sector, and we know how difficult it is for them to. So added value is created, however, in other areas, among others, the one which is that of our host in IT. Banks are huge employer. We often forget about the fact that it's over 150,000 people who work for the banks. I had nothing to say about the miners. You know, oh yes, we talk about difficult position of miners. 150,000 people work for banks, and they always have indefinite contracts, employment contracts. And what's important, the banks should look after our money. And there we have big question marks. Why? Because it is this Quinto syndrome. Everyone says, oh, let the banks pay because that's where the money is. But let's add one more word. It's the clients, the customers' money. And 1,200 billion zlotys. This is the money the banks manage and they look after. and deposits is 80% of our GDP, but they are the engine using which the banks can provide for loans, for credit. Under the current circumstances, when interest rates are actually cut down to zero, the percentage margin is adding to this tax burden, plus, I don't want to dwell on that, but of course the risk, bad loans that will be the result of what is happening as a result of, well, this slowdown of economy or economic crisis triggered by the pandemic. Please note that banks will not even provide the return on your deposit, because with inflation, which is 3.2%, you won't get big amount than 0.1, 0.3% per annum. And this is negative rate of return on our money. We can always say, well, but what's the risk? Well, everyone can say, well, there's no risk. We have guaranteed deposits under the banking guarantee fund. But if you remember, there would be 1,200 billion. But if you look at the fund, what they guarantee is only 890 billion. The rest of the money is either that of corporations or that going beyond 100,000 euro per client. But that's not the most difficult thing. Please note how. What's the risk coverage by that fund? The deposit rates are about very low level. In the fund, in fact, we have only 15 billion out of 190 billion that should be secured. So it's 1.8%. So any activity in these, stocks and thrift, anything that will weaken the system, banking system, bears huge risk to the system, its solvability, its solvency. The entire banking sector is self-insuring. It paid from the moment when it was created over 20-odd billion since 2010. Well, you have to refresh our memories that 5 billion during the last few years was paid for the bankruptcies of SCOCs, the so-called SCOCs, savings and loans, and cooperative banks. So where the additional buffer? It's inequity. The equity is at pretty decent high level, because banks have 17% of their own cash in the equity. 19 is the average level for solvability. Well, that means that 83% are the customers' money. Is the customers' money. So this is the level we risk at. We always say that, oh, there's huge bureaucracy in the banks. Yes, you can see all the regulations, equity norms, KNF recommendations. Yes, they result in bureaucracy, but then, well, new players, fintechs, enter the market. Those who use only some fragments of the market, like transfer ones. So, yeah, exchange, bureau d'échange, where you can pay slightly less. Well, during a lecture, I would always ask young people, who has a Revolut? And young people, of course, raise their hands. I think in this room, in front of your screens, I would find quite a few of those. Yes, we have Revolut. Is it a revolutionary product? No, it's not. It's easier and cheaper. And the Revolut created a few years ago is a bank already. I always admire Lithuania giving the license. Now they have 7 million and they guaranteed 100,000 euro to every customer. It's more customers than in entire Lithuania, but that's not the most important thing. Banks themselves, while seeing this, watching this evolution, create such mechanisms such schemes, such platforms, in order to manage the customer's money. Because we take the decision where we want to have our money. We shall select those whom we want to entrust with parts of our banking. Yolt is a platform like that. That is not a bank, but established with an ING from Amsterdam, but established with the purpose to manage the money, to facilitate payments, so customer to customer can also make transaction not only via bank, but underneath there is the banking infrastructure in each and every case, because that's the only clearance infrastructure available used here as well. But it's not the biggest challenge to banks. Banks will have to fight with the biggest players. The same digital wallet is created by the biggest of the biggest, Google, Samsung. An increase of number of customers from 140 million in Apple Pay to 227 million. And the pandemic, paradoxically, has only accelerated the pace, the trend, because these biggest players use the banking infrastructure. Because we select them. We pick up the mobile phone. Oh, yes, let's pay. And Apple, okay. Android, yes, no problem. So these are the players who can earn money, truly. Yeah, pandemic, economic crisis, slowdown, yeah, but not for them, not for them. Amazon, 33% of increase of revenue, pure money, 6%, 6%, 14%. The very Google and Apple together during 6 months, this first half a year of pandemic, and $50 billion on the application digital business only, and services, financial among them.
Eventually, this is us who make such choices. And of course, there are those who have already granted themselves this giant status, but there is also Amazon, who's been absent from this group, but I can bet on it every money that they are going to grab this industry too. Why? Just because of the fact that they have access to customer base, and this is us who are going ultimately to take these decisions. And what should we do about it? That's the last slide, yet the most important one. In order for us to stay at the lead, why do customers need banks? Why? Because banks need to manage this relationship. We shouldn't be lost in the spaghetti structure of IT systems. This is not all about it. We need to take advantage of agile systems, artificial intelligence. We should be capable of tailor-making various services in various channels. We need to build up a bank which is eventually a super modern being. And now let us allude to this first presentations. Perhaps we won't build it in 6 days, but in today's world, on API, on structures, which are apparently very modern, given this digital transformation, which is led by people who see in broader and wider terms. These are prerequisites for this system to be built, to be developed, to be redesigned, to be modernized, and we can have banks playing at the level playing field against most giant technological companies who would bow to get clients in this industry. And my message is for you to be taken away. Onet and Business Insider have published precisely this kind of content today. Let us take care of banks, because this is banks who keep and guard our money. Should you be interested into seeing more details about it, I encourage you to take a look, and let us take care about the banks, let them fly, let them thrive, because otherwise the whole industry won't develop at great length. So please stay with us at a distance of a beaver, of a bison, European bison, a young bison. So the beginning was very calamitous visions were yours at the beginning. I got scared. This is not that I did not know about it, but it was all made all together. So what's the point? Aside from these tragic circumstances, we can be, boosted by technology still remain afloat. So I have started thinking, getting very concerned about my money in a bank. You shouldn't be scared now. You shouldn't be afraid of it now. But the message is, in order for us to be having to rescue the situation when no rescue is possible. I'm not referring to this financial downturn. A financial downturn is set to come. So it is not something just limited to a financial crisis. When you have some banks to be insolvent, it's not an easy task. But I haven't responded to your question, so that they are not solvent. Oh, you're very delicate about it. Again, about technology. Banks have been doing great in pandemic. They've gone digital already. They can do it in a smart way. They can do it from home, and there was no issue about people management. Furthermore, they have proven it safe and feasible. Whatever has been shown in the pandemic is the fruit of the investments that were made some years back. If there is a state that distributes money, that distributes resources in a way which is, I lack words, distributes money in a way that I can't comprehend. When the state gets back the money from the system, then we are just limited to our infrastructure providers. And then we'll be picking this up or that up, and that's going to be the entire banking experience. Amazon, Google, Samsung. And now, I'm just curious to see if they are our taxpayers, or perhaps they are not our taxpayers. Perhaps that was the last accent, which is not altogether too optimistic, but the message was given and it was very strong. Piotr Czarnecki, the banking leader, the leader of digital banking, an ex-president of one of the Polish banks, academic teacher. And this is how this Asseco Banking Forum 2020 is coming to a close. This has been a unique edition, and hopefully it's going to remain unique in your memory. And hopefully we are going to reiterate this meeting without social distance next time, and that we will be able to serve you coffee in person. And hopefully that these solutions that we are taking advantage of now can stay with us throughout the events in the future. Thank you very much indeed for this.